Ahoy hoy gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome, and if you're joining from a previous video, hey, we love to see it, and I hope you're doing well. It's something different entirely! So yeah, this was supposed to be at the end of my King of the Hill video, or at least the Goode Family part of it, and then, yeah, you know, the King of the Hill video ended up being almost 12 hours long. So now, it's its own thing! That being said, this is the end of our King of the Hill block, so I did just want to include a quick addendum before getting started. Back in You Gotta Believe in Moderation, I mentioned a few things John Schneider was in before guest starring as the ace in that episode. However, I forgot to mention that he was also Jonathan Kent in Smallville. If I didn't make that correction, I wouldn't be a man of my word. So with that out of the way, let's look at two different series that tried to recapture the King of the Hill lightning in a bottle. The Goode Family, created by Mike Judge, and Bless the Harts by Emily Spivey. I've included timestamps if you want to look at one or the other, but obviously I think they work best when reviewed together. So without further ado, what worked, what failed, what King of the Hill comparison criticisms will be curtailed, let's put these series to the test here in The Goode and The Blessed. Also, we hit 10K, woo! The Goode Family. The Goode Family was created by Mike Judge, John Altshuler, and Dave Krinsky, and would actually air alongside King of the Hill's 13th season, briefly, with the pilot airing in May of 2009, a week after Uh-Oh Canada aired on Fox. There would only be 2 more episodes of King of the Hill that would air after that, with The Boy Can't Help It, and then of course, To Sirloin with Love, and then there the Goode Family would be to fill the void only on ABC. You know, ABC, home to all your favorite adult animated comedies. ABC had experimented in the past with adult animation with series like The Critic, which would later move to Fox, and Clerks, the animated series featuring Alec Baldwin for some reason. This, much like NBC's stint with cartoons with series like Father of the Bride, God, the Devil and Bob, and Sammy, didn't exactly bear a ton of fruit. None of the series really took off or held a cultural footprint other than The Critic, which, to be fair, The Critic had a stacked cast, amazing writing, a crossover, one of the biggest shows of the time, and was really kind of set up to succeed, and even then it only lasted 2 seasons in a web series. So was it a failure of the network or just a bad series? I mean, here you have Mike Judge attached, who is literally fresh off a beloved American classic cartoon that was still very much always on TV. You can still find King of the Hill reruns on TV today. The Goode Family has a Shout Factory release, and you can watch it free on YouTube right now through the official YouTube TV selection. The Goode Family is an antithesis to King of the Hill, created by people that worked on King of the Hill. What if we swing the pendulum as far as we can the other way? What wacky hijinks will happen? The Goode Family focuses on the Goode Family. That makes it easy to remember. The Goode Family are incredibly environmentally aware and staunchly left-leaning. Remember the co-op owners from Raise the Stakes and King of the Hill? Make them more sober and give them a show. The dad is Gerald Goode, played by Mike Judge. The mom is Helen Goode, played by Nancy Carell. And they have 2 kids, Bliss, their daughter, played by Linda Cardellini, and Ubuntu, their South African adopted son, played by David Herman. They also have a dog named Che, named after Che Guevara, who they try and feed a vegan diet, and you see what's happening here. Brian Doyle Murray would play Helen's father and the grandpa/cotton of the series, Charlie. Did you hear it in just the character descriptions? Like, honestly, the cast is solid. Mike Judge and David Herman are pedigreed in working within these kinds of scripts, mostly because Mike Judge helped develop them. Brian Doyle Murray as well to a non-zero amount. And on top of the usual Mike Judge players that would show up like Mo Collins, Scott Clace, and Renee Bell, you have new talent that has a lot of really great credits to their name. Linda Cardellini, on top of being Velma in the live-action Scooby-Doo movies, she's also an accomplished voice actor who'd recognize as characters like Wendy in Gravity Falls or CJ in Regular Show. And now that you know that, I know you can hear her voice. She's fantastic. Nancy Carell is a solid writer and actor that, while she hasn't been in as much, what she has done has been terrific, and fun fact, she's married to Steve Carell. What I'm getting at here is that no matter what I say from this point on, I want to make it very clear the actors are not the problem with this series. I cannot emphasize enough, no one, and I mean no one, could save this show. Spoilers, I guess. This show is the definition of overcorrecting. It's a show that had to be pitched in an era of Family Guy drawn together in South Park as the new King of the Hill. How does a series handle that weight? How does a series grow under such a large shadow? There's only one way to find out. And so I ask, what worked? What failed? What, I don't know, illegal rain collecting will be curtailed? Let's find something in the Goode Family to hail!
The Goode Family.
Positive? YouTube actually offers a ton of great programming for free that's open license, and since it's the same video player as everything else, it has a smooth buffer and the quality is pretty solid. I'm complimenting a streaming service instead of talking about this. The episode opens with a zoom-in shot on a bumper sticker on a Prius and then zooms out to find it covered in bumper stickers, and we get a look at the Goode family's house. Recycling trash cans, wildflowers, solar panels on the roof. Oh, and Gerald rides up on his bike in his usual riding getup, proudly announcing he has elephant dung for fertilizer. Do you get it yet? Just comparing and contrasting here, King of the Hill opens with Hank and the gang looking at a car and talking about that week's episode of Seinfeld. That's supposed to be the conservative household. They're drinking beer, looking at a car, talking about a show about nothing. Got it. And then if we look at the Goode Family, oh, they went from talking about how bad circuses are to wondering what to call black people after Charlie, Helen's dad, says a line. So Gerald decides to go over and ask their black neighbor Ray what he thinks the answer is. Ray is played by Gary Anthony Williams, and he's a pretty frequent player in the cast, but man deserves better than this. So much better than this. Also, I gotta say, the reviews for the series complimented its art style, and maybe I've just been spoiled, but what the hell is this? It's like a neo-pop-punk, super colorized, flat plane series with cross-hatching on everything, so it has shape. It's very obviously a creative design choice, but when I'm thinking Border Town looked better, that's a problem. It has no depth. We find out that Che, their dog, is fed a vegan diet, so it hunts the neighbor's pets, and yeah, that's your cold open. The show is a parody of environmentally conscious, overcorrecting liberal armchair warriors. They care more about the small things than actually fighting for any significant change. They want to look like they're helping, but you need to draw a line somewhere. Anywhere. The characters don't really seem to have an identity other than their progressive work. Oh, Gerald and Helen adopted an African baby so they could show they're against racism and got a white South African kid instead. Ubuntu is a choice. Who is this character for? He's like Chris Griffin if you could fry an egg on his brain as he tried to remember the Teletubbies theme song. Well, Ubuntu's turning 16 and he wants to drive. Gerald and Helen hate that he's going to drive and pollute the environment, so they tell him he can only drive in emergencies. Then Helen tries to bond with Bliss, who picks up her computer and runs off. To the show's credit, when Helen goes to the One Earth Market, hey, that's actually not bad. It has a ticker showing what foods have been canceled and what foods are good. There's like 9 varieties of organic, and when Helen forgets her reusable bags, she decides to carry her food in her hands to save the environment, and the people using reusable bags all give up their bags to carry their food too. They even threaten an SUV driver. All of that is categorically funny. It's solid commentary that is actually handled well. I enjoyed the scene, just not what it sets up. Helen gets told she should probably talk to Bliss about sexual health and decides to go in-depth on the joys of it, even taking her to the local community college. She starts oversharing, embarrasses her daughter, and when they run into an abstinence booth, Bliss signs up to spite her mom. Her mom doesn't have a problem against abstinence, but rather abstinence people. You know, the ones with the flag pins. Like, obviously, that's the joke of the series. The people that pretend to be holier than thou because of their conservation efforts are also the most judgmental. And political climates do shape satire and comedy writing of the time. Lil Bush wouldn't make sense coming out during the Clinton administration, and this show very obviously could not exist without the Obama presidency. There are like 3 political episodes of King of the Hill where they bring up the president or meet a president or something like that. 3. This show brings up Obama and the 2008 election 6 times in 14 minutes. Now, is that a death sentence for a series? Absolutely not. American Dad did it, and it's an almost perfect show. South Park, Simpsons, it can be done. But to keep bringing it up over and over, it's weird. Yeah, Helen doesn't want Bliss hanging out with Christian abstinence people that are probably Republicans. Bliss asks her dad, Gerald, to take her to the Purity Ball. This is the pilot. This is how you're being introduced to these characters. This is what you're supposed to get behind. Gerald takes Bliss to the purity ball where the girls give their fathers rings in a ceremony signifying their abstinence. It took me an hour to get through this one episode. I had to keep taking breaks and coming back, because when they find out there's an abstinence ceremony, which I think we can all agree is really, really weird, they call Ubuntu to pick them up and they leave. They're never stopped, there's no priest they have to sneak by, or really any conflict after that. Bliss doesn't need to be convinced not to be abstinent or something. She's not brainwashed into following the church rules. She sees it's weird with her dad and they bail. That's it. Helen gets drunk. I think the best example of why this episode doesn't work is the ending shots. So after the heartfelt family moments and everyone apologizes and walks inside, Che sees a cat and attacks and presumably eats it. Whee! Now that's been set up through the episode, so that's fine, that's whatever. Che eats the other pets. But then in the credits scene during Ubuntu's dinner and Grandpa Charlie showing up again after the episode is already over, they cap off Charlie offering to get Ubuntu steak and women in his SUV, with Che catching and eating a bird. That's the shot the episode ends on. Do you get it? Do you get it? Their vegan dog can't be vegan, ha ha ha! It feels like they banked on their sight gags being just so funny that nothing else matters. Ha ha, Ubuntu got into a street race in a Prius. Wacky. But that's not in the story itself. Look at the King of the Hill pilot. A child services worker comes and thinks Bobby is being mistreated. It's very much Hank versus the child services worker. The child services worker's interviews with neighbors is the audience's introduction to the characters that we'd be seeing later on, and the end of the episode brings it all home with Hank telling Bobby in a roundabout way he loves him. You understand the characters, their motivations, their flaws, and it feels fleshed out and complete. Who is Gerald? We know he works at the college, but that's about it. Honestly, the most interesting family member is Helen because she at least seems to have complicated emotions. She has inherent biases and inner conflict. Gerald just kind of floats along. I believe Helen hates how her dad is, and that's a non-zero part of why she does all the work that she does and is always trying to one-up and gets competitive. We get her motivations. I would genuinely believe that Gerald is a pod person that came out chewing oats. I'm not going to go as in-depth on every episode, obviously, but I want to take this time to look at the foundation of the series, and there's just nothing there. It's the equivalent of building a house on a swamp without draining it. A pilot for a show is a test to see if it's going to work. Everyone knows this. That's why you have an American IT Crowd pilot with Joel McHale, but no actual show, because the studio made the right call. If I was shown this pilot and asked if I'd go forward with the show, it'd be an emphatic, hard pass. But Mike Judge is attached, so it doesn't matter. Pilot is an eco-friendly 2 out of 10.
The Goode Family.
Hey, but a pilot is just a pilot. This is our first full-on episode. Maybe it's better. Ubuntu freaks out because he can't sculpt a narwhal out of clay with his dad and takes down a 300-pound kiln in his rage. The neighbors are so impressed they want him to join the football team, which Helen absolutely refuses. Bliss wants to get into college, but even with a 3.7 GPA, that's not good enough, due to the fact that she's white, and it's recommended she take a class at the community college where her dad works. Gerald sees how much football means to Ubuntu, who finally feels like he's found a place where he could belong. You know what, with him being adopted and all, and takes the boy to a football practice to see if he likes it. There we meet the coach, played by Adam Carolla, and Bri, played by good old Saul Goodman himself, Bob Odenkirk. Amy Hill also guest stars as one of the neighbors. They encourage Ubuntu to join the football team, and Gerald agrees behind Helen's back. I'll say it. Why wasn't this the pilot? You have conflict, all the characters are involved, and it checks all the boxes for an actual story. Charlie loves that his grandson is a football player, while Helen starts to dread it. Helen and Gerald become booster parents to support their boy, and Helen gives into her base urges and becomes a football mom and embraces her competitive side. Gerald doesn't understand football. Bliss decides to try and attend a school with a horrible reputation to hopefully get in the top 5% to get into a great college, but when that goes out the window, she buckles and signs up for a community college class. Gerald becomes a football dad for Ubuntu and tries to be a team player until the boosters try and sacrifice a pig for victory, like they've done for the last 50 years. I grew up deep in football country, and this is weird even for me. Like, what? It's just such an unnecessary escalation. But Gerald saves the pig, convinces the boosters to let him be a mascot, and Ubuntu gets to keep playing football. Now, was it a great episode? It was fine. It was leagues better than the pilot, to its credit. This actually felt like an episode of something. Gerald also has a little bit more of a presence and seems to be more fleshed out as the series goes on, but again, the most interesting character is Helen. Again, her turmoil about being a football family and then becoming this rabid fan is a good arc for her character. There is nothing foundationally wrong with this episode, and I actually like that it's this eccentric family being forced to interact with their community for the good of Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a conundrum. I feel like that's the point of his character, but he just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. The way David Herman plays him is definitely unique. The episode is fine, though I would have liked to see it focus on Ubuntu just a bit more, since Bliss got her own little side story going on as well. That being said, it is nice that he finds a community in football, and there's at least an emotional core to the episode. Pleatherheads is a refreshing Gatorade shower, 6 out of 10.
The Goode Family.
It's a Charlie episode. Helen is running a pet adoption event and Charlie mocks her for it. The community college has a squirrel infestation and somehow that's Gerald's problem? What does this man do? We just get told he works at the college and now he's in charge of rodent removal. Everything I see he's like an assistant to the dean or something like that. I don't know. However, while at the pet adoption event, Helen runs into a radical animal-loving group, Animals or Else, and a guy drops off a rancid hole-filled box filled with one of the most vile creatures ever conceived. Gutterball. A pus-leaking, rat-tailed, I guess, thigh-flap monster? Well, Charlie falls in love with Gutterball, and Helen feels a wee bit of vindication, which is why she eagerly agrees to letting Gutterball stay at their house so Charlie can see him. And sure enough, Charlie starts doting on Gutterball and makes Helen jealous that he's showing something anything love that she didn't get. Gutterball is an endangered species, a trefoil, a mammal capable of living for 100 years. Helen tries to get Animals or Else to take Gutterball and release it in the wild, and then has doubts. Charlie agrees to make it work with Gutterball and takes him out of the good house, while Gerald gives Animals or Else a shaved raccoon instead. Che eats all the squirrels on campus. Oh, and Ubuntu wants to work a forklift. Comedy is subjective. Everyone is going to like something different, but the jokes in this episode are just very surface level. They don't do anything. The conflict is literally Helen makes a phone call, regrets it, tricks them, and hopes for the best. It's nice having Charlie around, and he does add something to the family dynamic. I just wish it was a little better fleshed out. More often than not, Gerald feels more like a supporting character, and Helen should be the main focus. Helen is the one that has rivals. Helen is the one that gets competitive and has all these dynamics. And then Gerald is just this wispy cloud of a man. Was watching Ubuntu shadow drive a forklift really worth the C story? I don't know. The episode didn't work for me, but you can at least see the effort put in. Goods Gone Wild is a hair-raising 5 out of 10.
The Goode Family.
Okay, 1 episode, it's fine. 2 episodes, it's annoying but manageable. 3 episodes, the joke is dead, stop trying to resuscitate it. The episode opens with Che chasing down a gopher and eating it. He's supposed to be a vegan dog, but he eats animals. Do you get it? Are you laughing yet? Each time they show Che hunting with this like pseudo-predator vision and it just goes off. It's like they're making him even more unhinged. I mean, the chasing is so over-detailed and excessive, which hyper-detail absolutely can work when it's for some mundane task or something, but here it's used to keep going with the same recurring joke that wasn't funny the first 4 times they did it, and yeah, it just fails. It's the parade of organic gardens, and Helen is determined to get into it despite her rival slash friend, her frenemy, Margot, played by Julia Sweeney, who also played Wanda McPherson in Baby Blues. She's a talented actress. I just wish she wasn't a source of conflict in every episode she shows up in. At least she's not in every episode, just 11 out of 13. Helen throws out her back, putting up a photo of the child she's been sponsoring for the last 30 years to make the house look more diverse. And so, with Helen out of commission, she tells Gerald to hire a gardener to get their garden ready. Ubuntu and Bliss take up the ancient art of trading up, where you steadily trade items until you turn a penny into a house and other creative ways to barter. Isn't that a fun B story? Aw, they're gonna do some bonding, and look, they have a conflict right at the start. Hey, there we go, the show is really starting to find its feet. What's Gerald doing through all this? Oh, he's trying to find a white gardener to hire so he doesn't come across as racist or exploitative. He finds an organic gardener and hires him, but when he pulls up, he drops off 3 workers that Gerald tries to fire because they're not who he hired. Carlos Alzaraki and Nick Jameson would guest star along with Susan Chong. It's an episode. It's okay. Gerald decides to hire them and pay them directly instead of firing them, basically paying them under the table. Helen gets a letter from McKinkin, the girl she sponsored, saying that she's going to visit and shows up and helps with Helen's pack and housework. She abhors the Goode family's vegan lifestyle because it takes away the pleasure she was looking forward to experiencing, like food and running water. And when Helen and Gerald feel like plantation owners, they swiftly and viciously overcorrect as the organic garden tour visits and catches them in the act. Bliss gives McKinkin her moped as a way of de-escalating the situation, and when Margot gets embarrassed, Gerald recommends sensitivity training. Why? The best part of the entire episode? Bliss riding her moped. It had a cool little art style change and it actually looked pretty great. The rest of the episode? How do you start with organic garden tour and end with G? Margot, maybe you need some sensitivity training. Have Gerald try a bunch of organic means of taking care of the garden and then have to resort to pesticides like Peggy had to in King of the Hill. Have a new family pretend to be more environmentally conscious than the Goods. There's 1,000,001 ways you could build a narrative without it being this. I think I know why it doesn't work here. Gerald is a much too muted character. Even his freakouts are soft. If Hank was in that situation, he'd have a good old boah moment that at least is something to work off of. Here, he might as well go jinkies and flap his hands. The episode doesn't punch through. It doesn't take advantage of what it's doing and just ends up being this weird mess. Honestly, focus more of the episode on Bliss and Ubuntu. The story had way more potential to be fleshed out. Show's been canceled for 14 years, I know, and it doesn't really matter, but still. Helen's Back is a slip disc of a 4 out of 10.
The Goode Family.
Helen wants to get on the art council and is introduced to Jen and Suki, a lesbian couple voiced by Gray Griffin and Cree Summer, who she tries to get closer to and snake her way onto the council. Ubuntu drives Ray to the church for bingo night and finds out he has an innate love for the game of chance and an eye on the brand new toolkit he could win. Helen makes Margot jealous by fitting into the art council like a glove. You wanna know the funniest part about this entire thing? This was the first episode I laughed at. Granted, that's not hard when you have Gary Anthony Williams in a show, but now I want more Ray. The Ubuntu B story, I am actually invested in for the first time in the show. Good job, the Goode family. What happened at the soiree? Gerald shouts out lesbian when Helen points to Jen in a game of charades. Not quite Randy on Wheel of Fortune bad, but still not great. Yeah, they get embarrassed and it's awkward. Oh, Margot is accusing the Goods of being insensitive and looks down on them. It's a day ending in a Y. Gerald and Helen try to use Bliss's rebellious boyfriend's gay moms as a chance to show they aren't insensitive. His parents are Trish and Mo. This is confusing now. Trish and Mo were in Pleatherheads and Gerald knew who they were. Bliss didn't even meet their son that they reference in Pleatherheads until this episode. So I'm guessing the show was aired out of order, showing ABC had just as much faith in this as Fox did for Firefly. You know what? Who cares? Ubuntu won bingo. He runs up, he's ecstatic, and he grabs the toolkit while giving a victory speech. I'm harsh on Ubuntu, but if I'm being honest, he and Bliss have the most potential. If you did go forward with the show, focusing on those two would have honestly made the show better. They both have stories in this episode. Bliss gets a boyfriend she hates despite her mom by dating a bad boy, and Ubuntu loves playing bingo even if he got kicked out for being 16, which is messed up and I'm gonna smash that man's bingo ball for making the poor guy cry. But they're ideas. They are things you can build up. Have Ray teach Ubuntu more of the ancient lucky arts of bingo. Have Bliss force her way through till she's reconciling with Helen and getting far away from the guy. It's better than focusing on Helen betraying Trish and Mo, who invite them over on the same day. Helen promises Jen and Suki she'd host a game night. Game night comes around and Bliss's boyfriend breaks up with her, and Ray and Penny bring Ubuntu a bingo kit because they knew he just wanted to play bingo and they want to play it with him. Helen tells Ubuntu it's game night and you don't have time to play games. Trish and Mo come over when they hear Gerald isn't feeling well, and they even brought food over for them. The art council start listening to Trish and Mo's stories while mocking them, and so Helen decides to try and kick them out until she snaps when Suki throws in one last jab. She picks her friends over the art council. The episode ends with Ubuntu setting up bingo. I mean, At least the kids are okay, but this just feels like a redo. It's always Helen v. Margot, and like we get it, they catfight. What else? Give us a Frenemies episode where they have to work together or something. Like, they're not even taking dynamic opinions. There's nothing in this show I'd call controversial by today's or even 2009 standards. It doesn't know what it wants to do. Ubuntu is okay, though. I was harsh on the David Herman performance, but the more he does it, the more you understand the cadence he's going for. The more you understand Ubuntu, the better he gets. A Tale of Two Lesbians is a bingo card stamping 6 out of 10.
The Goode Family.
Gerald sets up a, I guess, borrow closet during the block party. Helen wants to build their block party even bigger by getting sponsored so they can appeal to the whole city. Heinrich Müller, a famous freegan, is walking across America. A freegan doesn't buy anything and only lives off what they find. Okay. Helen gets a sponsor from One Earth until, you guessed it, Margot just has to get involved. Helen then says that Heinrich Müller is the grand marshal of their block party to get back at her, and there's your conflict of the episode. Again, I mean, could we not, though? Could anything else cause conflict? Why is it always Margot? It's just exhausting at this point. Helen calls Heinrich's publicist and invites him, and he agrees to come, and David Herman gives his best Werner Herzog impression while mocking their efforts as performative and wasteful, which they do deserve, but let's not be throwing stones in glass houses. Gerald and Helen get Heinrich to stay with them and help set up the block party. Charlie and Bliss decide to mess with the man who only eats trash and make salt out of his tears. He deserves it. Heinrich starts telling Ubuntu to do things like turn lights on for him so that he doesn't do it, but still uses it. Maybe, don't humor this guy. Hot take, I know. Honestly, though, David Herman does a great job with him. His voice delivery is fantastic, and while I've heard that voice before, he makes the guy just this annoying, condescending mess of a man. We also get the return of Gutterball, a character I would have been perfectly happy with never seeing again. Heinrich has Gerald set up the block party using trash from the dump. Heinrich also invites other freegans to take from the neighborhood's trash. And when Heinrich doesn't want to leave, Gerald agrees to be a freegan and continue Heinrich's walk in his stead. The walk Heinrich started to run from his wives and kids. The neighborhood works together to kick Heinrich out and bring Gerald back because they actually do like him. What? People feel something about Gerald? He's a character worth feeling something for? What an idea! Again, the show got a laugh out of me. Again from Ray. I mean, Gary Anthony Williams made something like Saul of the Mole Men fun. He can at least give a pulse to this show. Gerald starts to hallucinate after eating trash. Helen has Penny lie about being pregnant to scare Heinrich out of the house and get Gerald back. You know what? It got 2 laughs out of me. Bliss and Charlie pranking Heinrich at least felt inspired, and I mean, that's good enough by comparison. Didn't hate watching it. I took no pauses while going through, and that's something. The bar is so absurdly low. But Gerald was developed a little bit more, we did get better cutaways, and there at least looked like there was an evolution in the story. Still real tired of Margot, but if I have to watch the show, I am fine watching this episode. Freeganomics is a trash-eating 7 out of 10.
The Goode Family.
Toby Huss guest stars! Elvis Costello and Allison Hannigan would also guest star. Ubuntu and Bliss are encouraged to do community service and give back to Greenville with some motivation by a boomerang-throwing non-Australian guy. So don't ask him about Australia. Gotta admit, that got me. That didn't just get me, that floored me. That one dumb line was enough after all of this. And you know what? I'm gonna go off of this high and tell you my controversial opinion. I'm gonna get flack for it, I'm sure. I actually really enjoyed Adam Carolla's voice work in the 2000s. Death and Family Guy, Spanky, the frickin' clip art pig, like what was drawn together. All of it. He's fun. Bliss wants to go to Costa Rica for community service and just party when Helen wants her to actually do something real, and since they can't afford it, Bliss has to clean up graffiti. Oh, and Helen gets into an ego match against Margot. Yay! Ubuntu works on a speech and he's just got a bunch of empowered buzzwords. And when Bliss goes to clean graffiti, she finds out that it's a front, so she just has to hang out and not do anything. Helen goes to see how hard Bliss is working and finds out it's all a scam. Helen is honestly understandably upset that Bliss isn't actually helping her community for community service. Now, that's when a normal person would maybe take them to do a different charity or something. Helen proceeds to tag the school so Bliss has something to clean. Bliss doesn't learn her lesson, so Helen gets more complex with her designs to make them trickier to clean. The fact that she does that is an interesting thing to add to her character. People start loving Helen's tags, and people are putting meaning to her art that wasn't there to begin with. Helen does a Banksy, and Gerald finds out about it. He agrees to cover things up for her, and then someone comes forward claiming they're the artist. And of course, when someone else tries to take credit for her work, she proceeds to tag in front of the crowd and gets arrested. Gerald tries to convince Bliss to help her mom and understand that while her mom got lost in the sauce, she loves her more than anything and just wanted her to appreciate what real community work did. Bliss comes down and helps her mom with her community service and even put a good word in to get it reduced by selling out the person abusing the government. Ubuntu inspires kids with his speech. I'm gonna be real with you, gang. If every episode of the series was at this level, boy howdy, boy gosh, ABC made a horrible mistake. It's got depth, character, and is a well-written episode. Gerald, I will say, sounds a lot like Hank Hill with his dialogue this episode, but honestly, I don't care at this point. I've been reviewing 13 seasons of King of the Hill before this. I'm sure it's just association. But it has that earnesty that earlier episodes were lacking. It's not them fighting some cause, it's Helen loving tagging after doing it to get Bliss to do real community service. It could have been worse. Margot makes sure it's not a 10 out of 10, but I mean, having the art critics all praise the work and have some fake claim it's theirs, and then have her ego be what gets her caught? Great googly moogly. That's a through line, folks. That's what we needed. This is a good episode. Graffiti in Greenville is a high pressure 8 out of 10.
The Goode Family.
Gerald takes the family to Cranky's to try his new no-meat chili. However, when they get the chili, it's no-meat chili with chicken, a meat. Oh boy! Cranky would be played by special guest David Koechner. Gerald has consumed meat. His entire life is a lie. After recovering in the hospital, Gerald decides to use his nuclear option. Peaceful protest. To have Cranky get rid of his chili. No one else is on board. Oh, this is a Gerald episode. Let's see if it's good. Che goes missing because the gate was open and the family goes to look for him, but he ends up at Cranky's and they bond over a shared love of meat. The family teams up with Ray, who's arguably the best character in the show at this point, and see that Gerald is getting torn apart on the average guy's show. And yet, Gerald pushes on as people defend Cranky. His family finds him at the sit-in, and they find Che at Cranky's, but when Che has to choose his owner, he goes to the guy with the meat, understandably. They call Cranky a loser and get him so fired up he straight up has a heart attack. Now that Cranky is too weak to compete in the cook-off, he tells Gerald to cook in his stead, and if he brings home the blue ribbon, he can get his dog back. They have to follow his horrific instructions, including naming the chickens they use in the chili. The Goodes refuse to cook his chili with chicken, and Helen believes that they can make blue ribbon no-meat chili. The chili contest has some really interesting animation. The character designs have always been pretty fluid, but I don't know. These feel dynamic in comparison to what we've seen before. Obviously, for a more horrific angle, I'm sure, but I don't know. I really kinda love it. It's pseudo-heavy metal. The judges try Gerald's chili and immediately spit it out because it's vile. Gerald convinces the chili contest to have a separate category for meat-free chili and get Cranky his blue ribbon. Cranky turns over a new leaf and actually becomes friends with the Goodes. David Koechner elevates the episode. He tries, and I appreciate that. It feels like 2 episodes were sort of Frankenstein together, and I gotta say, I don't hate it. I kinda wish they let Che stay with Cranky, but it's not that deep. A Good Game of Chicken is a meat-free 7 out of 10.
The Goode Family.
The Goodes get mugged. They don't have a weapon or anything, but Gerald still whips out his wallet and Helen proceeds to split their money between the two of them. Gerald and Helen decide to help by involving themselves by helping at-risk kids with art. Oh no. Ubuntu joins a volunteer corps and Bliss enjoys having her parents out of the house. Helen and Gerald really want to make a difference, especially for their class, Art of the Urbane, as an alternative to detention. They learn very quick they're out of their league when one of the kids yeets their bonsai through a window. Ubuntu goes to check out the Nature Trooper Volunteer Corps and meets their leader, Jeff, played by Deirdre Bader. While looking for soda, Bliss finds Gerald's laminator and her friends try to convince her to make fake IDs. What an episode! Ubuntu is thriving, helping the environment, is unknowingly helping an eco-bad guy sect getting ready to blow up a dealership. The detention kids start using the camera they stole to learn photography. The theme of today's episode is crime. While Bliss is shelling out fake IDs, she gets found out by her grandpa Charlie, who wants to get in with the senior community. And Helen and Gerald think it'd be a great idea to hang giant pictures of the students in the middle of the hall, because that's a smart idea. Yeah, they get viciously beat up because of it and lose their street cred forever. Phil Lamar has been in the series here and there, and honestly, he has always given a consistently solid performance, but this episode is easily his best so far. Ubuntu catches Bliss and Charlie and swears to stay quiet if they make a fake passport for him. That's not suspicious at all. Bliss and Charlie figure out that Ubuntu is the wheelman for the operation. Helen begs the students to help her save Ubuntu. They confront the group to save their son, and the students jump in to stop Jeff. Helen and Gerald start a new nature-centric after-school group, while Charlie and Bliss cook up a new scheme. The students come by and steal Gerald and Helen's TV. So close, yet so far. Like you're at the end of the episode, don't trip now. But hey, all things considered, not a bad episode. Again, it's got conflict, a set theme, and it works. It works as an episode of a TV show. After School Special is a drug-free 7 out of 10.
The Goode Family.
Gerald loses the chance to bring a bike lane to GCC by having it passed off. Helen is listening to public radio and enjoying Fred Ridley, voiced by Andy Richter. Ubuntu has a crush and Bliss agrees to help him get the girl. She doesn't ask for anything in return. She just wants to help her brother get a date. Again, the kids are the strongest part of the episode. Like, of all the things the show does, the one thing I can say it does well without a shadow of a doubt is show that the kids have had to be close to each other to endure everything they've gone through with their parents. They have each other's backs. It's nice. And when the public radio online feed starts glitching, Gerald is determined to bring public radio to Greenville. It's the public radio episode. Probably the best written intro of the series so far, and the jokes are genuinely solid. Gerald sets up a pledge drive to raise the $100K needed to get the licensing for public radio. Dax Shepard also guest stars in the episode as Steve, Bliss's crush. Bliss gives Ubuntu horrible advice, and he blows up in Tanya's face to seem like he has edge. The leader of public radio sales is Erwin Winslow, played by Kevin Nealon, aka that guy in Weeds and the dad in Glenn Martin DDS, who's in every third Adam Sandler movie. Gerald marches to meet someone in person to accept a check instead of making them write one over the phone for the radio. He gets all the funding in one check, and there's no way that's not going to be a problem. Everyone starts praising Gerald and keeps coming up to get their shows approved. Fred Ridley is, a character. Sure enough, public radio sells out and starts running sponsorship bumps, much to Gerald's dismay, even if it gives him the luxuries he didn't get to enjoy. Also, turns out Ruth donated a little too much and is gonna lose her house. And yeah, Gerald tries to fight for the right thing and get Ruth that money back, even taking it all the way up to Fred Ridley, and gets a promotion to active listener of the radio. To keep them honest. You know what? For this show idea, for the aesthetic they've set up, for everything they are trying to do, this is a perfect episode. And I think I know why. Margot isn't the initial instigator. All she does in this episode is offer to buy Gerald a coffee. Otherwise, it's a Gerald episode where he finds something he's passionate about and works to get it done. Even by the end of the episode, he hasn't stopped public radio from being overtaken by ads or anything grandiose. Ruth gets her money back and he effectively gets fired without realizing it. Also, Ubuntu teaches Bliss to just be direct with the people she likes and be honest about how she feels instead of her whole song and dance, and they both dance with their crushes at the party. Helen is weird and supportive, Charlie delivers great lines, and honestly, out of everything I have seen him in, and I grew up obsessed with Conan O'Brien, Fred Ridley might be one of Andy Richter's strongest characters of all time. He is infinitely better in this than he is in Straight as an Arrow in King of the Hill, which came out just a few months prior. I took time to bash the show, and I'm definitely going to take time and celebrate when a show does something right. They cut down on Che, they focused on something they'd understandably be interested in, and is an overall benefit to Greenville. Now, yes, the pacing is a little all over the place, but that's a minor criticism, and honestly was a common thing for ABC animated series. I'd actually be very interested to find out what studio notes ABC had for the series. In a weird way, it kinda has the same tempo as The Weekenders, which if I didn't mention that show sometime in a review, my wife would hate me. But it's true, it's just animation of the 2000s just did that sometimes. I wish public radio was a mainstay at Greenville and not just a one-episode plot, though. If they had made that Gerald's work instead of just floating every man on the community campus, I think it would have had a lot more room to work with. Have it be a rundown public radio studio that gets more improved throughout the season and gets more and more popular. Have Ridley be a recurring guest star. This episode kinda proved to me that if the show was made today, it might not be that bad. Public Disturbance is a wholehearted donation of a 10 out of 10.
The Goode Family.
Helen is shopping at One Earth and is absolutely in bliss as Margot complains about organic wine to celebrate for her husband stealing Gerald's idea. And yeah, Margot's husband always takes Gerald's work as his own and it upsets Helen. He doesn't care. Bliss wants to get new jeans and decides to get a job to pay for them, which Gerald thinks is capitalist, but honestly, it's a funny spin on the same idea that led Bobby to start panhandling in King of the Hill. Helen invites the Chancellor to a dinner party to help Gerald climb the academia ladder behind Gerald's back. Ubuntu is 16 and gets hired at One Earth over Bliss, who's only 15. And Bliss is going around town to find jobs and gets offered to sell chocolate door to door and shuts it down because it's a scam. Any other show would play off it as their big B story, but it shows that Bliss knows what's up. I actually really genuinely like that. It's a smart writing choice, even if it seems super small. While Helen is shopping, security comes over and pulls her out of line and accuses her of shoplifting because she drank a wheatgrass shot she thought was a free sample and gets banned from her favorite place in the world, and she's understandably confused. She's banned from every single One Earth, which yeah, that's a consequence, but they didn't even offer for her to pay for it, which is a very common thing to do. I don't know, feels like a forced reason to get her kicked out, like there could have been something better. And since she can't go to One Earth, they have to actually shop at Save Big instead. Bliss tries picking cucumbers, then tries to sell chocolate on her terms, and when she can't find anything, Ray offers her guidance. Lie about your age. It worked for him when he wanted to fight Nam. Gary Anthony Williams is a treasure. Helen is a mess and Gerald goes to make things right and makes things worse because, of course, Margot overhears him. And you know what? This feels like a payoff for all the annoying Margot scenes we've had to this point. She tells her husband that Gerald is hosting the Chancellor and it's gonna bomb now. He freaks out because he'll lose the guy he's always taking the credit of, and when Margot realizes there's no way her husband could do his job without Gerald, she's determined to get Helen back into One Earth and make sure the dinner party isn't a disaster. For her own entirely selfish reasons, she wants to help Helen out and fix things. It is 100% on brand, and it's great. Then absolutely none of it matters because Ubuntu takes a tack out of a photo and Helen gets to come back. Margot getting fired up and yelling about a cause and then doing absolutely nothing to actually resolve the issue, Gerald standing up for himself while making Margot's husband look good in front of the Chancellor, Helen dealing with depression and then springing back to make sure a night is solid because she genuinely loves her husband and wants his hard work to be appreciated? Bliss lies? No, this is great. This is what you want to see. This is a payoff on characters and the jokes are solid enough. Is it anything groundbreaking? Absolutely not. It's not giving any gut-busting laughs or anything, but they at least show they know the characters they're writing. The characters feel fleshed out. Ubuntu has grown on me more than a little bit, and overall, yeah, it's a genuinely solid episode worth watching. Trouble in Store is an all-organic 9 out of 10.
The Goode Family.
A teacher tells Ubuntu his green energy ideas are too little too late and that the world can't be brought back from the brink. That's a genuine reason for a kid to get upset. Charlie then says that the world is going to be taken out by an antibiotic-resistant flu bug. Hee-haw! Gerald and the family have been saving for an eco-cruise even though Ubuntu is so distraught. So Gerald decides to show Ubuntu a way to help the environment by adopting a highway instead of going on vacation. The family tries to recruit people to help out Route 9, and when they get thrown on the One Earth big board... Wait, what do you mean they're using the big board that was just a gag in the first episode as a recurring thing that keeps referencing for comedic and story-driving effect? No! I'm supposed to hate this show. I refuse this! And as all these noble armchair warriors unite to clean a highway, a prison bus pulls up and gives them all some much-needed help. Oh yeah! With all these people, this highway is gonna look great. All right, who'd they bring? Oh, white nationalists that scare off the other volunteers. Oh, that is so fun! Toby Huss and Johnny Knoxville would actually guest star in the episode. Dean, one of the prisoners played by Knoxville, firmly encourages Gerald to let him help clean up before they're driven off for the day. The prisoners really wanted the bottles, and Penny really wants the prisoners. Well, the prisoners really only pick up the bottles as a way to smuggle. Yeah, that checks out. Oh, and Che is back, but they use him much more sparingly than before. Gerald recycles one of the powder-filled bottles, blissfully unaware, sending Dean into an absolute frenzy, and sends Clyde to take care of Gerald. Gerald is dangerously, terrifically oblivious about what's going on. They get a visit from the prisoners, and Gerald has them sat down and serve vegan chili, and effectively becomes a Don with Ubuntu as the muscle. He encourages them to pick up their own highways and branch out, even hoping that Dean would see the business from his perspective. Gerald unites the prison to work together. They fail upwards. They are blissfully unaware of what they've done, and hey, you know what? That's fine. Johnny Knoxville, of course, absolutely delivers and gives just a dynamite performance. But he's Johnny Knoxville. The man really does try with his voice acting. I don't know. I really kind of love that the resolution doesn't fix the bottle issue and instead grossly expands it while the family is just trying to help. You understand what they're going for. The gears are starting to click, and honestly, this is another really strong episode. There's not even a B story either. They trusted that the A story could carry the narrative, and it actually did. Hey, maybe the show is turning around. How many more episodes we got? Oh, 1? Huh. Well, that's not good. Gerald's Way or the Highway is a lemon lime fresh 9 out of 10.
The Goode Family.
And here we are, the series finale. Ubuntu is growing peach fuzz, and Charlie and Gerald start competing with ideas of masculinity. Trish and Mo are trying for another kid, and Helen thinks they're asking Gerald to be a donor so they can have this kid. Series finale here, folks. Gerald's the Goo Man. Trish and Mo never explicitly ask Gerald to do it, but the family is already planning like he's gonna do it. Sure enough, they start telling everyone that they're doing it, and then Trish and Mo reveal they weren't talking about Gerald. Like, duh. Trish and Mo want a real man's man, not Gerald. Helen, instead of coming clean, doubles down and fears that Charlie is going to ruin his grandson without another masculine influence. And so Helen tries to make Gerald seem as masculine as possible to change Trish and Mo's minds. Helen decides to send him to a manly drum circle and channel his true masculine energy, and it's full of people you absolutely expect at a men's drum circle, and yet Gerald does actually get something out of it. Kevin tries to get back with Bliss, who is very open about how much she detests him, and his girlfriend justifiably breaks up with him. Gerald invites Ubuntu to drum circle before they get bullied by the accounting jocks. I love them. I love the accounting jocks. Defeated, Gerald tells Ubuntu to listen to his grandpa. And after Gerald talks Kevin out of the tree in his backyard by encouraging him to cry and let out his emotions, Trish and Mo see him in a new light, but back out of having a new kid after seeing their own kid, climb someone's tree and cry. The episode ends with Gerald standing up to Charlie and teaching Ubuntu how to shave and bringing him, Charlie, Trish, and Mo to drum circle. Obviously, they weren't expecting this to be the series finale or anything, and there's been shopping of the series around since its conclusion, but for a season finale, it's not bad. It's definitely better than some of the King of the Hill finales, that's for sure. All the characters have noticeable motivation, David Herman is every third character, and miscommunication is the cause of conflict. Man, it really does feel like a lower tier King of the Hill episode, but it's still something. You can still see where they're wanting to go with the series, and I don't entirely hate it. A Good Man is Hard to Find is a capstone 7 out of 10.
The Goode Family.
And there we have it. That's the entirety of the Goode Family. Anything you think I was right on, wrong on? Let me know in the comments below. The Goode Family was complicated. I went into this review remembering not liking the show all that much, and I came out of it not necessarily changed in my opinion, but I at least have a new appreciation for it. And honestly, for Nancy Carell, She doesn't have a ton of credits to her name, and honestly, I think that's a shame. Her voice acting, even on the worst episodes, stood out. It's disappointing that she could shine so bright in a show time has mostly forgotten. But hey, she was Carol in The Office, so at least she did get to show off and still be appreciated for that all these years later. Honestly, Ubuntu did a 180 on me, and like I said at the start, the talent did a good job with what they had. Any critiques are purely with the story, and even then, hey, it's personal opinion. You could just as easily love what I hated. That being said, I would love to know how much was changed for ABC. Remember, when King of the Hill was pitched to Fox, Fox brought on Greg Daniels to spruce it up a bit and make it have more mass appeal. What was changed from the initial pitch of the Goode Family? Also, the show looks like it aired out of order. Whether intended to sink the show or just not caring overall, I do think it may have had an impact, and I would have loved to know what the intended viewing order is. Though as it is, the front half is a lot more bogged down with the weird political messaging and posturing, and the back half is more them dealing with the world around them, and it works just a lot smoother. I can definitely see what the reviews were talking about when the show got away from its political commentary and just focused on the family and started to shine. Looking over the entire series, my favorite episode would probably be the public radio one, and in my opinion at least, I think it could stand up against King of the Hill episodes in terms of quality. By the series' conclusion, you still didn't have a firm foundation, but there was the sprinkling of one. Ironically, and this is gonna be a hot and spicy take, I think the Goode Family would have had a better shot if it was modernized and came out today. I would even go so far as to say that it would do better than a King of the Hill revival as things stand right now. I know, but I truly believe the media saturation right now would honestly probably be a boon for it. It'd be easy to get the cast back for it. It's very easy to update this series, even if you just age everything up 15 years. Oh no, that means Che wouldn't be in it. Ah, that's a shame. Also, Che's noises were done by D. Bradley Baker, who is an absolute pro at him. He's like 30 of Ben 10's Aliens. Probably even more than that, honestly. The man is a vocal master. But I also have spent 18 season reviews talking about how great he is. He did some dog barks and grunts attached to arguably the worst element of the show. Now, do I think they were wrong for canceling the Goode Family? No. This was 2009, and ABC to this day still hasn't done another animated series. Sometimes the soil is salted before you even plant the creative seed. The Goode Family, I firmly believe, never stood a chance on network TV. And while it did get picked up by Comedy Central for reruns in 2010, and they were even going to see if they wanted more episodes, it failed there too. But hey, Netflix, or more likely Disney Plus, since it was a Studio Roman production, would probably throw it a few bones. The Goode Family was uncomfortable at worst and fine at best. It never really hit that moment where it felt like King of the Hill. It felt like they were trying too hard to move away from what they'd just done and pivoted so far left that they spent the better part of the series straightening out and finding their groove. That's not to say it's impossible to catch at least some of the magic of King of the Hill. To create a series brimming with and even overflowing with potential and love for the story and characters. To make a series that would even get Mike Judge's seal of approval. What series is that? Well, you'll just have to wait and see when the Goode and the Blessed comes out. Coming soon. It's Bless the Harts. You're gonna say it in the comments. I'm just gonna say it now. Yeah, of course, it's Bless the Harts, but it still deserves to be talked about. Bless the Harts is a series that I'm disappointed I have to cover like this. It was created by Emmy Award-winning writer Emily Spivey, who worked on SNL from 2001 to 2010. She even wrote one episode of King of the Hill, Torque's Song Elegy, which if you remember is arguably one of the strongest episodes of the entire series. And in 2019, she teamed up with fellow SNL alums Kristen Wiig and Maya Rudolph and made Bless the Harts. Inspired by Emily's home state of North Carolina, the Harts live in Greenpoint, NC, and struggle to get by from day to day. The series would star Kristen Wiig as Jenny, the main character, Maya Rudolph as Betty, Jenny's mom, Jillian Bell as Violet, Jenny's daughter, and of course there's Wayne, Jenny's longtime boyfriend, who would be played by Ike Barinholtz. I mean, you've got a ton of solid comedic talent from both SNL and Mad TV right out the gate. You'd also get Fortune Feimster as Jenny's best friend Brenda, and Kumail Nanjiani as Jesus. It's a lot. The series would also include Megalomart so that it could loosely exist in the King of the Hill universe. Not that it needed to, but it is a fun touch. Bless the Harts would run for only 34 episodes and would be canceled in the middle of its second season. Don't forget to tune into Housebroken, only on Fox. They're dogs. That's why it's funny. Crapopolis, more like crap, no, they kind of just, wow, they protected themselves from all fonts with a name like that. You win this round, Ionde. You win this round. Where the Goode Family review was more of an autopsy, let this be more of a memorial for a show taken well before its time. So let's line up at the start for Bless the Harts. And here we are, the quick, short first season. Again, totally common for a show to have a 10 to 13 episode order first season, but this is traditionally where the ideas are going to be the roughest of a show. And looking back at the season, it's actually really, really good. I don't know, better if we just get into it. So, what worked, what failed, what running of the ostriches will be curtailed? Let's have some fun here in Season 1. It's the series premiere, our pilot. Jenny gets her very overdue water bill and is determined to right these wrongs. Wayne hypes her up like a true hype beast while she grabs a 2-liter and cranks those bills out, finding out that Betty had a secret storage unit while she slowly prints memes off on her printer, because she is the queen of memes. Yeah, you have my attention now. They fight in Violet's room, which is also the laundry room and where the water heater is. Violet has to sit on paper towels. It's a life, but it's hers. Jenny goes with Betty to the storage unit and she reveals that she's been hoarding Huggin' Bugs, the 90s Beanie Baby cultural smash-up dolls. Now, if there was just the doll, that would have been plenty. But they made a theme song and a time-specific commercial for the delightfully adorable and spontaneously combusting little guys, including the Macarena Colin Powell bear. I notice a new one every time that they show the commercials, and it works. It sings. The B story has Wayne checking out Violet's art, and she has her father figure as a big, glorious winged warrior, while Wayne's face is in a stump. So he's determined to build Violet her dream clubhouse in the backyard, so she'll see that he can be just as cool of a dad as her absent bio dad, Don Reynolds. We also get some backstory on Jenny, mostly that she had a teen pregnancy and was pushed to try and marry Don and refused. Wayne has his buddy Leonard with him, and guess who Leonard is played by? That's right, Gary Anthony Williams. There is peak cooking in this season. Well, Jenny knows how valuable she thinks the Huggin' Bugs are, and so she steals a few from her mom's storage unit and sells them online, and they get swiped up so fast. They really are popular, and it's Betty. Betty is buying back all the dolls Jenny is stealing and creates this Ouroboros of spontaneously combusting hot potato. Jenny also has a heart-to-heart with Jesus at her work. Jenny works at the Last Supper seafood buffet under Louise, played by Emily Spivey herself, alongside her best friend Brenda, and I don't know, I think it's cleaning fumes or a gas leak or something. Because whenever she's cleaning, Jesus just peels himself off the painting on the wall and gets all sassy girl pal for her while offering witty Jesusisms to teach her the error of her ways. I like that Jenny doesn't always listen to Jesus and is actually critical of some of his teachings. It's a subversion of the classic sage wisdom archetype. The problem being, Jesus is such a pendulum this season. Sometimes he's really solid and they really lean into him being her own figment of imagination. Other times he rambles about carrying a guy like a baby across the desert. It's a bit of a toss-up. His first appearance is fine. Meanwhile, Wayne constructs his mega clubhouse for Violet, and while you don't know how long Wayne has been with Jenny or how long he's known Violet right now, it can feel a little awkward. But the more you learn about the two, the more this episode makes sense on a rewatch. Wayne has been a part of Violet's life since she was a baby, and he always will be there for her. So, when the city tells him to tear down this whimsical structure, he's more than willing to fight it all the way to the top. He marches into city council and demands to let the structure stay, and we actually get our first introduction to a lot of Greenpoint. Greenpoint feels like a perfect marriage of Arlen and Quahog. You don't necessarily have the neighborhood idea, but you do absolutely have a ton of characters that live in the city for Jenny and the family to interact with. You have the mayor and Bud. You've got these two guys that always just deliver flat dialogue, but that's their thing. Like they're some kind of Statler and Waldorf. And then you have him. Now, I've talked in the past about perfect roles, but this one is transcendent. Drew Tarver plays one of the most majestic characters of the entire show. Randy. It is Randy, my babies. He is the perfect, modern, greased-up deaf guy character. He is the most off-the-walls in the best way kind of character. I love Randy. Randy is perfect. More shows need a Randy. Well, the city denies Wayne's claim and he has to take the structure down. Jenny and Betty decide to destroy all the bears until one of the Macarena Colin Powell's is bought and they can turn their water back on. The episode ends with Colin Powell completing his Hug and Bug collection of himself and dancing the Macarena. It took 5 episodes for the Goode family to get a chuckle out of me. I was cracking up like 4 times in this episode. It is the perfect marriage of emotional and dumb in the best way. I don't know, you can tell it was made by someone that really knows comedic timing. Not to mention the cast is stacked with big players that know what they're doing. Kristen Wiig and Maya Rudolph have done voice acting plenty of times in the past and were even on Big Mouth together. Ike Barinholtz is in all kinds of projects. Man shotguns them out in hopes maybe 3 are good. Jillian Bell was even in Supermansion as Lex Lightning, and I'll say it, one of the strongest performances in a stacked show. Like, the actors know what they're doing, the writer has a realized idea of the city they want to tell a story in, the cutaways are sharp and relevant, and yeah, it's a 10 out of 10 episode that just shines as a great jumping off point. Violet is an incredible artist and is entering an art show at school where her teacher, Mr. Strikeleather, the coach who has never seen a movie that wasn't a National Treasure film, thinks she should take her talents to a school more fitting her talents. We also meet Violet's best friend David, played by Oscar Montoya. I'll say this, I love Violet and David as these 2 alt kids who ironically love-hate everything. They have actual deep-rooted cinephile beliefs, and it sounds weird, I know, but you can sort of understand their thought process. Like, you have that weird alt emo kid character in a show, and they're like, yeah, I collect rabbit's feet and mangrove leaves. And that's supposed to be, oh ho, that's so quirky. But Violet and David reference classic films and have a so tacky and chic mentality that just gives their characters that extra level of pop. Like, Violet does a painting of Bud Cort's character Harold from the classic movie Harold and Maude that would even get brought up later. It could have been some random made-up movie, but it isn't. And while it's something that's built on much later in the series, it's an important trait of Violet's character that really humanizes her. Jenny sees that her daughter deserves more, and she decides to moonlight at Bud's topless bar to try and earn some extra cash while Wayne tries to figure out how he can get rich quick and gets 2 ostriches. Okay. Naturally, Louise hears about Jenny stirring the grits so they don't get that film on them, and she has to let her go from the Last Supper. She tries to do tasteful stripping since she's a trained dancer, and yeah. However, when Jenny gets fed up with Bud, she storms out and finds Louise waiting for her husband David at the bar, and they have a bit of a heart-to-heart and she gives her her job back. Violet ends up winning her art contest, impresses her family, and they put the money aside for her to one day go where she really can learn. Yeah. This episode was definitely a lot more about the emotional core of the show. Everyone is trying in their own ways to give Violet the life she deserves. Even when Violet wins the money, they don't take it to pay for anything they need, like new appliances or anything. They make sure it stays with her so she can use it. They love her and they love each other. That's never challenged, and I actually really love that. Not to mention the heart-to-heart between Jenny and Louise. It was unnecessary, but adding it in adds such a great extra depth. The episode is another wonderful 10 out of 10 that never outstays its welcome. The statue in the center of town is causing controversy as people want the statue of a cigarette maker torn down, but people don't want it removed because of the culture, even though it was put up in 2002. Meanwhile, Betty reveals she was Miss Tobacco Leaf and had a relationship with the cigarette magnate, but ran off, and so Marjune Gramble swept in. Violet and David, thinking they're gonna get a, quote, Grey Gardens, beg Betty to go and see the reclusive widow and see if she's gone crazy. Jenny compromises her integrity by siding with both sides of the statue argument, even dividing them in the restaurant so she can keep her story straight. Which, like, hey, that's how you do it if you're gonna do it. She's a waitress struggling to make ends meet. Whatever she needs to do to make it work, that's all I'm saying. That is until the city brings her up and trusts her opinion on what they should do about the statue, and she has to flip-flop like only she can, and a riot starts. Also, this episode is when we really see the side characters shine as they get riled up. Like, the 2 deadpan guys are great, don't get me wrong. It's one of those, the more the joke goes on, the better it is. If you're going to break the rule of threes, you break it to an absurdist degree. Don't skimp. And they don't. They are so invested in these characters, and it shows. Also, while not a drawback, you can tell the animation is less than ideal. A lot of characters moving up and down to signify movement kind of stuff. Big CG berserk energy. And that's totally fine, it's a first season, it's not going to have a huge budget, but especially in the next episode, it can be distracting at points. Betty and the kids run into Marjune, and she's a perfectly adjusted widow living in a penthouse suite. Oh, and she's played by Emmy and Academy Award-winning actress Holly Hunter. That's right, Mrs. Incredible is in the show that no one talks about. She's a somewhat recurring guest star even. Marjune flirts with Betty, Jenny returns her stuff to help calm down the city, and everything does eventually return to normal. It's a 9 out of 10 episode that does drag slightly in some parts, but it's definitely going harder into the comedy than anything else, and I don't know, I appreciate it. It's a solid little outing. It's our Halloween episode. Wayne is scared of ghosts and is finally ready to face his fears after Violet makes fun of him. He is determined to prove that ghosts are real and that they are super spooky. What a fun Wayne idea. Wonder what Betty and Jenny are going to be getting up to while that's going on. An old bridge is getting demolished soon, the same bridge Jenny's late dad wanted his ashes spread over, and turns out Betty never spread them, so they have to before it's too late. Betty always holding on to them because she didn't want to let go of her husband just yet. Oh, okay, cool. Wayne's dealing with ghosts and Betty's dealing with having to let go of her late husband. Okay, sure, that got a little real. Betty shows Violet and David pictures of how Ed was this genuinely larger-than-life guy that the whole city adored, who made a giant Halloween party and did a big motorcycle jump every year. He was someone that did right by everyone and was the life of the party. So in his honor, Jenny and Betty take over the yearly Halloween party that has been commercialized by the city and make it one last haunted rager in the late Ed's memory. The Wayne story is whatever and fine, but it's obviously not the focus. Also, Jenny and Randy sing on stage, and it's incredible. There's a lot of original songs in the show, and they're actually pretty fun. It's Betty and Jenny grieving the loss of Ed in their own ways and celebrating like only they can. It's heartfelt, and even the last bit where Betty held onto a little of the ashes to remember him by, you get it. No one wants to say goodbye. Cremains of the Day is an episode that hits you when you least expect it. It's going to pull at your heartstrings until the last minute and shines because of it. Cremains of the Day is a rock and roll power ballad of a 9 out of 10. The family is going to Megalomart after Betty and Jenny get their nails done, so they're walking the store barefoot when they bump into Betty's age-old rival and frenemy, Crystal Lynn, played by Mary Steenburgen, wife of Ted Danson and star of movies like Elf and Step Brothers, and easily one of the best comedic actors out there. Where Margot failed in The Goode Family, Crystal Lynn thrives as the venom-tongued frenemy that understands her role in Betty's life and lives for it. They have their little friendly barbed conversation as they're stepping outside. Betty and Jenny get called trash twins and splashed by a car peeling out of the parking lot, so they're on the hunt to get even. Jenny, feeling trashy after the event, tries to refine herself into an upper-class, posh intellectual. The B story has Wayne babysitting his kid Uncle Tommy for his Meemaw, and the kid is a cast-equipped menace that runs around and destroys everything. Wayne even takes him to his gym church where they worship the Father, the Son, and the Swoley Ghost. The Swoley Ghost gang. How no one watched this show is beyond me. Betty finds out it was Crystal Lynn that called them trash twins, and Jenny wants to kill her with kindness, so Betty tries to play her way, and when that fails, they get dirty while Violet judges them. Jenny, feeling guilty, goes to Crystal Lynn with Betty and a peace offering, and they meet her new grandbaby and bond over fresh baby head smell. It's an episode you can only write if you understand the dark side to Southern hospitality. This is written by someone that has heard or been in conversations where the doublespeak is thick. The B story with Tommy is, yeah, it goes for way too long. Remember when they kept hitting Peter in the sack with a bag of nickels? That was great. Cool. Now imagine if it were 5 minutes longer in like 5 different scenes. That's all it is. There is no resolution, there is no bigger overall story. It's not even the best Uncle Tommy episode there is. It's just, honestly, the Phil LaMarr part is the best part when he's playing the swole priest. That was actually great. I wish we got more of that character. Trash Twins is good Southern entertainment that shines because Mary Steenburgen understood the assignment and will continue to deliver throughout the show. Trash Twins is a tall walking, shame-free 8 out of 10. There's some episodes that you truly feel a show was made to create. Like this episode had to be given to the world. Pig Trouble in Little Greenpoint is one of those episodes. Wayne is whipping up some of his classic barbecue because if there's one thing to love about North Carolina, it's that vinegar-based, pulled, and marinated good stuff. Violet has decided to be vegetarian and is happy that the Pig Festival decided to use her pig art, which questions the morality of consuming pig. Naturally, they scrub away her thought bubble and just use the pig, and she feels understandably betrayed. Meanwhile, Wayne is watching Triple D with Chip Scoville, and Jenny keeps insisting he enter his barbecue into a contest because she knows he'd win just like his idol, Chip. Look, I was hard on Dave Herman a lot in my King of the Hill review. He also did a lot of incredible work, and it takes real talent to be used so frequently in so many different shows. I truly believe Chip Scoville is one of the best characters he's ever done. He embodies all the best elements of a Guy Fieri clone. Anyway, Jenny signs Wayne up for the big cook-off without telling him, and Betty goes to the festival to see her on and off lover, Rick Ocean, the bass player of the Rick Ocean Band, the #1 North Carolina beach music producer. Rick would be played by fellow King of the Hill alum and vocal legend, Stephen Root. Violet teams up with Brenda to get revenge for the pig painting, and yeah, that's the episode. It's a mini vignette adventure that really, really works. Wayne seeing Chip and accidentally adding too much vinegar, Betty tormented by the thought of going on tour with Rick and leaving her family, and Violet dealing with people not understanding the true meaning to her art. Jenny gets Chip to try Wayne's real barbecue and gets a finger wiggle of approval from the bro resident-in-chief. Betty refuses Rick but promises to follow his tour schedule, and Violet eats meat because obviously if you don't eat the pigs, they'll overtake us all. It's a perfect episode that understood what it needed to do right from the conception. Each layer is so perfectly constructed that it just sings. Except for the Jesus Sand thing. It just, man, I don't know what it is. Like, yes, we can all agree Kristen Wiig is not anyone's favorite Ghostbuster, but that movie failed because it had a lot of improv. Here, it doesn't feel like there's any improv unless it's Jenny and Jesus, and then it just goes on for way too long. It's literally the only downside to the episode, personally. Otherwise, yeah, it's a tangy yet sweet, smooth coast rockin' 10 out of 10 that sings from the heart. Randy is an icon. We stan Randy in this house. There's a rodent running around in the ceiling of the Last Supper blasting Crazy Train. But it's not some everyday vermin. No, it is Randy, my babies, who has been living in their ceiling for 30 days before crashing to the floor as a sort of Carolinian David Blaine. So, with the ceiling destroyed, naturally Jenny has a few unpaid days off, as the restaurant has to make repairs. And so the family is taking a vacation down to Myrtle Beach, where Wayne and Betty are going to sit through a timeshare sales pitch, while Violet and Jenny are gonna bond over putt-putt golf, and Jenny enters a putt-putt golf tournament where the owner thinks a girl could never win. It's literally just him and his buddy that think this, but they are so over the top with it, it's kind of great. Like, every time she subverts it, it's just, I don't know, I like it. And so, yeah, Jenny shows off her incredible putt-putt skills while bonding with Violet, and Betty walks Wayne through all the tricks so they don't get screwed over. It's a fun, nothing episode that plays out exactly how you think it would, and that's kind of the point. Oh, what? It wasn't Wayne that got, it was Betty? Nani? Like, yeah, of course, That's a subversion, all right. Oh, wow, the last hole is sabotage, so the owner of the course decides who wins and who loses, but then Jenny beats him with raw skill, so his scheming didn't matter and they win their little contest? I don't know, it's fun. It's fun, so you don't worry about any of the other things. It's never overcomplicated, it's great bonding between Violet and Jenny, and I think the best part is Violet never hates hanging out with her mom. She genuinely loves her small family, and it's just good to see. Myrtle Beach Memoirs is a great vacation of an 8 out of 10. Oh, and Randy becomes Sandy and does a great bit at the end. He's just the best. There's talk that the corporate executives and showrunners hated Randy, and they're wrong. They are just factually wrong. It's Thanksgiving, aka Black Friday Eve, and the Harts are gearing up to throw elbows down at the Megalomart and get a new microwave that won't blow the breakers if used wrong. What? Violet has the audacious idea to have a traditional Thanksgiving instead of Bagsgiving, and so the family miserably tries to go through a traditional meal and recount how they found their original microwave, and we get a flashback that shows how Wayne first met Jenny and how he was the one that saved Violet from being stampeded by rabid bargain hunters. We also get a Betty and Crystal Lynn team up for some Uggs, or just, Uggs to normal people. They have to stop some sort of double-wide Whovian and her linebacker sons that talk only in grunts and sneak some Uggs out of her cart. It's a busy episode with a lot of flashback moving pieces, but through it all, there's actually a magic that's being established. It's a very heartfelt episode that honestly makes the idea work. We'll get a revisit of the Megalo flashbacks next season as well, but this one is delightful in its own way, and I don't know, the jokes are still sharp. The employee that gives Jenny his price gun and cries because he knows his name won't matter at the other side of this is just great. There's just a ton to love and little to hate. Yeah, it drags a bit, but you don't think about it and just try and trudge through. Megalo Memories just has a way of keeping your attention for the full 23 minutes, and honestly isn't even a bad episode to start the series with. If you start with Megalo Memories and then go into the pilot, you have a better understanding of how long Wayne has been in Violet's life, and actually better establishes how the family is interconnected. It also gives you your first taste of Crystal Lynn, something to experience later on. Now, of course, it is a Thanksgiving episode. It should air on Thanksgiving, but still, it kind of feels like a solid enough episode it could be the first one of the series. Megalo Memories is an unforgettable 8 out of 10. I haven't talked about her, but Kristen Wiig does the news anchor voice, and I mean, we all know that if there's one thing Kristen Wiig is good at, it's her character work. But good lord, she is having fun with this character. She is hamming it up like she's the pork princess of Packanaw County. It's fun. Also, Phil Lamar's in the show. He was the Swoley priest, and now he's Big the weatherman, and he's shown up throughout and just brought A-plus talent like almost always. Mulligan blemishes any record. Anyway, snow may be coming to NC and the whole state is starting to panic buy milk and bread when Louise decides to invite Jenny and Brenda to her big holiday gala instead of giving them their Christmas bonuses. They go to the gala and you guessed it, Black Ice, the silent killer that took both of Adam Sandler's parents in 8 Crazy Nights, also steals their freedom in a 12-car pileup. Even poor Tom Hanks's toy train hits some black ice on the rails and jettisons America's Uncle right into Cloud Atlas 2, this time with more clouds. Don't know, never saw the movie. Betty plays poker and takes the men for all they're worth. Violet traumatizes kids with her horrific Christmas story of a monster Frosty destroying a tiny town, and Wayne meets his small-town hero actor Ian David Cole, played by special guest Chris Parnell, who encourages him to do a Love in an Elevator Christmas carol, and Jenny and Brenda raid Louise's house determined to steal a Christmas bonus until Jenny finds Louise crying about her failing marriage. Look, I like that there's this sort of humanizing conflict for Louise, I do. It's just, her husband gets written out of the show in just record speed right after it and doesn't really have any involvement in the second season. So I don't invest a ton into his character at all. Miracle on Culpeper Sims Boulevard is, yeah, it's a Christmas episode. No one really learns anything other than Wayne, and even what he learns is just confidence is key. I don't know. Could have been more there, but the jokes are still super sharp and it's a fun enough ride overall. It's definitely on the weaker side, but it's still not bad. It's a holla delightful 7 out of 10. And here we are, the season finale. After the dryer catches fire, Jenny and the family have to stay at Wayne's for a few days, and she does not take it well. She feels like she's being domesticated and starts getting into pointless fights so she can find a way to bail. She felt pressured into her last attempt at marriage from getting pregnant at a young age and him having a ton of money, but that wasn't the life she wanted to live. Jenny has commitment issues because everyone pressured her to do something she just couldn't bring herself to do. And so yeah, she and Wayne feel pressured to get married now that she's staying with him, and they keep going right up to the edge to see who's going to back out of getting married first until Violet gets them both to shut up and read her vows so they can just tell each other how they really feel and understand that marriage just isn't for them and that's okay. It's a solid emotional episode that honestly, if the series had to end here, it wouldn't be a bad place to do it. There's even a great part where Betty is trying to prove Crystal Lynn faked her unsolved mystery, and you just don't do that. She's fighting for the people on that one. It makes the whole season feel thought out and planned bit by bit, and the studio just let them do it. No airing episodes out of order, no mess. It did drag in the middle and was probably the weakest episode of the whole season overall, but the emotional moments are still there and still have a pretty potent punch. Tying the knot is a fun 7 out of 10 that walks away from the season with pride with its head held high. And there we have it. That's the first season, and honestly, what a freshman outing. When the weakest episodes are ironically at the end of the season, it's baffling, and even then, they're still not all that bad. There wasn't an episode here that I wouldn't revisit again or I'd tell anyone they should skip. And honestly, if this is what I had to look at and see if I'd greenlight a second season, I'd do it in a heartbeat. And you know what? They did. We've still got a beast of a second season, and there's much ado in season 2. Batman screen transition noise. Yeah, hi. It's weird talking about a 2-season show. But yeah, this is the final season. Bless the Harts would get canceled midway through for a lack of ratings, so the real question is, did it fail because it was bad, or because in a media landscape that heavily favors streaming and curated content, a show like this just can't keep its head above water? Granted, this season did air during 2020, and as we all know, nothing happened between 2019 and 2020 that had any impact on the media world. What do you mean Trolls World Tour was the catalyst for the fall of movie theaters? It was a perfectly normal time. So, was it timing or the content of the series that caused it to fail? Well, there's only one way to find out and only 3 things to ask. What worked? What failed? What snake-headed threats will be curtailed? There's plenty to see and plenty to do here in Season 2. Violet is being secretive, and Jenny is worried she might be up to some sort of scheme because she and her mom were absolutely up to something at her age, and she didn't want her to make the same mistake she did. So she and Betty team up to see what Violet is doing while Wayne has to deal with a frivolous lawsuit from their neighbor, Bobby Nell, played by Fortune Feimster, because his working on the roof allegedly scared her bird. Brenda, also played by Feimster, tries to help him when she finds out he's just trying to sort of matlock his way through it in front of the good judge Debbie Donatello, played by Natasha Lyonne, who you'd recognize from Orange is the New Black, Russian Doll, or Poker Face. The episode does a great job of balancing its A and B stories, and they feel genuinely unique from each other. Betty hyping Jenny up and pushing her to spiral as they both panic about what Violet could secretly be up to, even though Violet has never given them a reason to worry about doing anything horrific. Sure enough, she's just working at a photography studio part-time so she can earn her own money and have some sort of independence because she lives in a common room and wants something all her own. Huh. Human motivation. Crazy. And if you say the Wayne story isn't realistic, oh, I strongly disagree. Now, I'm not saying it's not exaggerated, but someone making frivolous lawsuits and expecting you to not show so they can get the default judgment and live off of that, doing that as their work, it's more frequent than you'd think. Having had a few neighbors like that, can confirm it's a nuisance, definitely not isolated to the South, and the depiction is perfect. Also, I know I haven't gotten into it, but I love Brenda as a character. Fortune Feimster does a great job of making her this wild she-beast in the best kind of way. She'll absolutely go on a date with a guy and then turn around, bench press a 4-wheeler, and then shotgun an entire bottle of Jägermeister and have no idea how she did it. She works perfectly as Jenny's childhood friend and as a citizen of Greenpoint, with her own giant chaotic energy. I don't know. Best friend characters are usually somewhat muted or held back, and Brenda is just wild and free, and I respect that. Violet's Secret honestly feels like the best season premiere. It's a light A story with arguably low stakes, and a wild B story that keeps the audience's attention while delivering primo comedy. Violet's Secret is a well-hidden 8 out of 10. I feel like this episode is the living embodiment of one of the most overdone yet underappreciated tropes out there. This is the series protagonist is forced to put together a TV commercial to help the community, and all the community wants to be a part of it for their 5 minutes of fame episode. I think it's more a sitcom thing than it is an animated series thing, but you know the drill. Everyone goes over the top for attention but don't want to actually put in the work. Protagonist gets disheartened and starts to snap, and then the community comes together to pick them up and thank them for their hard work. It's overdone, it's cliche, but I don't know, it works for me. I'm a big sucker for community coming together stories. So yeah, when a new chain seafood restaurant is getting ready to go up right down the street on the highway, Jenny is tasked with making a commercial for the Last Supper to hopefully save the little establishment and their town from becoming a thing of the past. Violet and David start making a documentary about her creation of the commercial. We have Wayne trying to rope in recently divorced community theater legend Ian David Cole, played again by the brilliant Chris Parnell. Sure enough, Jenny gets overwhelmed because she doesn't have the experience, and the entire town is pressuring her and she snaps on a live mic. The town gets upset, but also, they put all this pressure on Jenny's shoulders, which is why, when she feels lost, Violet shows her footage of everyone talking about how great she and Greenpoint really are, and revitalizes Jenny to finish strong and save her town. The commercial was garbage. The seafood restaurant never came to town, but the city made something together, and that means something. Again, I'm a sucker for these kinds of episodes, and I think this is the best example of it. It's Hank's cowboy movie, but with more steps and honestly a better motivation. Hank was just trying to get the cowboys to move to Arlen when it was never up for debate. Here, there's an active threat incentivizing the town to do this. I don't know. There's a lot of charm to the episode, and apparently it was originally written for the first season and just used here, and you can honestly kinda tell. While minute, there are some differences between the seasons, and the second season is much more fast-paced, I'd say. This episode feels much more slowed down, and I actually appreciate that. Also, Jesus sounds a little off throughout the show. Now, granted, again, I have to imagine a non-zero amount of recording had to be done in lockdown, but it's literally just Kumail Nanjiani that has any amount of reverb or dull echo in his lines. I don't know. The more I thought on it, the more I was convinced he was recording in his closet or something. Like, again, desperate times call for desperate measures, but it also takes away from the sort of back and forth he had in the previous season. It's something that becomes more apparent as the season goes on, but it's still floating around. The Last Supper is a Chuck Testa approved 8 out of 10. A lot of moving pieces here. The ladies of Greenpoint, led by their fearless leader, Marjune, played by returning legend Holly Hunter, are having lunch at the Last Supper, and Jenny agrees to serve them when Brenda absolutely refuses to. Jenny impresses them, and Marjune asks Jenny to help them cater a gala after reminiscing on her potential romance with Betty. Brenda feels betrayed when Jenny has to cancel plans to spend more time with the ladies and starts to slip into their ways. But Jenny does invite Brenda to the gala even though it's not her thing. Betty starts feeling her age that she won't disclose and starts schmoozing up to Marjune to get put on the short list for the poor people in need of cosmetic surgery. And Wayne and Violet have a day trying to guess people's lives as window washers. I really love Wayne and Violet's dynamic. Like, Wayne has known her since she was a little girl, and you can tell he genuinely cares about her and loves making her happy. She's not his kid, but he'd do anything for her. Bless the Harts and Clarence are probably the two best examples of a non-nuclear family in animation. I didn't go a ton into it last season, but we definitely get a lot more Violet and Wayne adventures, and honestly, I think that works better than any, say, Peter and Meg episodes or side stories. Obviously, it'll come up more later in the season, but it's just fun seeing the two play off of each other. They do an excellent job of making their relationship feel established, and yet Wayne feeling like it's delicate, even though you can tell Violet loves him like a dad at the end of the day. The fact that he worries shows he cares. I'm focusing on that because the bulk of the episode is largely fine. I get why Brenda would feel slighted, and yes, Jenny should have talked to her, but also, they're paying Jenny. Now, this isn't stirring the grits at Bud's, this is being paid to cater and organize large-scale events. You get that bread, Jenny. You got a daughter to put through school. But you could absolutely disagree and say she needed to spend more time with Brenda, which, yeah. This show does an excellent job of presenting moral dilemmas without outright vilifying one side or another. Wait a second, it's like the creator of this wrote on King of the Hill or something. I'd honestly love to see what their writer's Bible looked like. All the things characters could and couldn't do, their commandments, I don't know, that had to be a fascinating thing to learn. Honestly, that's a great writing exercise. Try and write an episode of King of the Hill or of Bless the Harts. Try and write in each character's voice. It's harder than you think. My Best Frienda is a Friends Till the End 7 out of 10 that, while it has its strong elements, does drag in the overall narrative, and the conflict does feel artificially inflated in parts, but the spirit and charm is still absolutely there. Okay, so, last season's Halloween special was the steep send-off where Jenny and Betty had to say goodbye to Jenny's father's ashes. It was touching and heartwarming, and Jenny made her dad proud in her own way. It was an episode that had a lot of true heart, and it was magical and great. I loved that Halloween episode. Randy was just terrific in it, which is why it hurts so much to say that Dead Mall might actually be the better Halloween episode. literally just because the Wayne B story dragged the first one down. This one doesn't have a B story to get in the way, and it's great. Jenny gets an invite to a mall demolition final party at the mall she and Brenda used to do the rounds in. They were the popular girls, or Jenny was, and I'm guessing Brenda was her muscle. They'd get free food and just toss it over their shoulders because they were too cool for school. Well, they go past all the security tape, which you know all the cool parties are held in dilapidated malls that have barely functioning electricity, and they run into fellow partygoer, mall enthusiast, and bedazzling expert, Stacy, chillingly and delightfully played by voice acting legend and absolute treat of a person, Kristen Schaal. Like, whenever I hear her voice 9 times out of 10, I know I'm in for something good, unless it's the newest season of What We Do in the Shadows. But it had Greg Turkington in it, so it wasn't a total wash. Stacy is trapped in the past. She's still acting like the mall is in its golden era, the early 2000s, over 20 years ago. Don't worry, gang, my bones creak too. Look, when you're closer to Jenny in age than Violet, and remember when the 2000s were in, these things start hitting different. It'll happen to you too. Betty, Wayne, Violet, and David all start exploring, determined to prove that Stacy's security guard boyfriend is a mannequin, while Betty picks up her caches of stashed merch before the mall gets demoed. Turns out Jenny and Brenda were some certifiable mean girls, and Stacy has actually been scheming for years to get them back for never acknowledging her, Jenny's biggest fan. Kristen Schaal plays creepy masterfully. Obviously, her voice does a lot of the heavy lifting, but her inflection is what makes her a real talent. She knows how to make that same Mabel Louise voice have a maturity with a character like Sarah Lynn or a chilling undertone with Stacy. It's not just the voice, it's how it's used. Everyone is bringing their all in this episode, and it's great to see Violet and David just being weird and fun together. David comes on family outings, and Jenny knows how important it is for Violet to have a friend. It's just nice seeing the two search for the perfect Halloween costumes in the 2000s ghostness. There's some twists that I'd say are 2 twists too far at the end of the episode, but overall, downright masterful. Chef's frickin' kiss on this one. Dead Mall is a 10 out of 10 spooktacular episode that should be added to any Halloween marathon. You don't need to know the characters to appreciate the story. You can put Cremains of the Day on there too, but you're probably gonna cry at that one instead. I know I did. Dead Mall is just, man, I wish I had a real genuine complaint and I don't. It's just good Halloween TV. When Louise decides to open the Last Supper 24/7, Jenny gets forced to become the night manager and have to deal with the crazy night folk, including, and not limited to, Randy, my babies, with Wayne naturally worried for her and wanting to help after unintentionally provoking her to take the position. Meanwhile, Betty and Brenda bump into each other at a Pound Pinchers Weight Watchers parody meeting, led by Ruth, played by everyone's favorite Bob's Burgers guest star, Paula Pell. Think someone is played by Paula Pell? They probably are! Anyway, they decide to turn the club into a chance to work on their stand-up routine and begin hopping from organization to organization to polish their insult prop comedy into gold. Naturally, things get out of control with the night people, and Jenny gets overwhelmed but refuses to give up because Wayne mentioned that it might be too hard for her because she's a girl, until a Paula Pell-voiced robber comes in and Jenny has to be creative about slipping her ill-gotten gains so she doesn't get an I told you so. I gotta say, I love that Jenny's stubbornness isn't just a one-episode thing. It's a generational thing. She, Violet, and Betty all have that don't tell me what I can and can't do mentality, and while yes, it almost always bites them in the ass, it's great to see a flawed protagonist. Pound Pinchers isn't the best episode of the season, but honestly, it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. The jokes are really solid, and it kinda hangs on Kristen Wiig's delivery as well as the sight gags of the night people, which I mean, when you have characters like Worm Food and Mr. Apocalypse, I'll admit, you've got my attention. The Brenda and Betty story does get overshadowed by the Jenny story, even though you could argue it was supposed to be the A story. It's weird. Like, the episode opens with an inciting incident for Betty, but then we just spend so much time on Jenny, and it almost feels like they realized they didn't have enough for a proper Betty A story and pulled back, which was admittedly the absolutely right call. Pound Pinchers is an around-the-clock 8 out of 10. At a funeral, Betty and Crystal Lynn start getting into a duel of the eulogies where they constantly try and interrupt and one-up one another until Marjune Culpepper, played by returning great Holly Hunter, steps up and steals the show with a truly gut-wrenching story that Betty and Crystal Lynn are convinced was stolen right from Fancy by Reba McEntire and are dead set on proving that she's a faker. Even though, you know, they're both faking. So the two go on a road trip with Marjune to her hometown to call her on her supposed bluff in the most awkward, poorly thought out way they possibly could. Meanwhile, Violet and David are being forced to actually participate in the presidential fitness exam by the new gym teacher, Coach Fowler, played by Rob Riggle. Jenny and Wayne go to confront the coach, only to find out that Violet and David are absolutely the problem, and Coach Fowler was asking for the literal bare minimum, and they refused in the most apathetic ways imaginable. So, Jenny and Wayne weaponize their love of all things gauche and obscure after watching them speed through traffic to see a Rocky Horror performance announcement. Again, great to see Violet and David just having this deep love for deep cuts. They're not completely random, out there, made-up things either. It's all very John Waters, RuPaul, Harry, and Maude-esque trophies and references. They're real appreciators of weird, out-there art, and I don't know, it elevates the episode as a whole. The Betty and Crystal Lynn story works because Mary Steenburgen and Maya Rudolph just bring it with the crazy grandma energy. The episode is probably the best example of what we're gonna get for the bulk of the season. Perfectly fine slice-of-life comedy. Did you want it to develop into something more complex? Too bad. But if you're happy with that, these filler bulk episodes are a ton of fun that never really drag except for like 3. The episode is probably the second strongest Marjune episode and is an overall fantastic watch. The McEntire truth is a tremor-generating 8 out of 10. People forget Reba was in Tremors, but not I! Oh, it's the second installment of Megalo Memories. Sal from Impractical Jokers would actually guest star in the episode as Bear Volcano, action movie star. And Fred Tassissiori is here. He plays loss prevention expert Henry Tumbare, and he's just great. Oh man, I'm rattling off guest stars early. That can only mean one thing. That's right, gang. This episode is fine. It's just, yeah, it's fine. David tags along and they get into another giant flashback. Betty is trying to do a slip and fall that will stump even Henry. Wayne has to deliver milk before it spoils in the back of his truck. Oh, and Jenny finds out she's pregnant and doesn't know what she wants to do, as having a kid would completely upend her dance career and all her future prospects. Wow, one of these stories is a lot heavier than the other ones. Wayne has a big dramatic action sequence driving through town, the jokes are okay, and ultimately the episode ends with Wayne telling Jenny everything will be okay from behind the milk, and she goes on to have Violet. I don't know. The first Megalo Memories, I think, was kind of a perfect Bless the Harts episode, and this just fell short of that admittedly almost impossibly high bar. It's a fine watch, but if you watch it after part 1, it just feels too coincidental, and I don't know, it makes you wish there was more. It's great seeing where people were back when they were younger, but it's not enough to make the rest worth it. Megalo Memories Part 2 is a reheated 7 out of 10. Jenny asks Jesus for a sign or maybe just a windfall of money or something, nothing crazy, and decides to play a scratch-off for the first time and actually wins a little bit of walking around money, a little something. Naturally, instead of saving it or putting it in one of those dastardly banks, she and Betty go on a full-time spending spree that showed me that Wild Women Do was in fact an actual song and not just an American Dad joke. Had no clue. That's on me. Violet and David get swept up in their shenaniganery, and before long there's a giant purple pump shoe chair in the Hart house. Meanwhile, Wayne goes to his favorite hardware store, Bigsby's, that he grew up adoring and actually impresses the owner, Mr. Bigsby, played by Mad TV alum Michael Hitchcock. He's so impressed he offers Wayne a standard minimum wage job at the hardware store, which he enthusiastically agrees to, and quickly runs afoul of his slacker co-workers, Peter Bigsby, played by David Herman, and Doug, played by Ken Jeong. I hate Peter and Doug. They're just mind-numbingly boring characters that just do nothing for me. They are stale and bring down almost every episode they're in. Like Wayne, my guy, have some self-respect. You can do so much better for yourself. I don't know. It's the weakest Wayne idea, if I'm being honest. I wish he at least became a manager or something. The A story is fun, all things considered. The B story just kinda brings the episode down. I will say I do like that David and Betty team up towards the end, even against Violet, and that David has sort of implanted himself as a member of the family. It's fun. pumped is a return policy protected 7 out of 10. This is an episode. Okay, so Jenny has been doing the old Southern implied message thing with Louise instead of just outright telling her she wants a raise. Wayne keeps trying to tell her to just tell her, and she just refuses until a customer goes in and shirks all hospitable tendencies and just holds herself up in the women's bathroom, taking up the stall. They do everything in their power to try and flush her out. Get it? Ha ha ha! This is an episode that feels very regional. Obviously, some things are pretty universal, but the A story etiquette and everything is just a weird amalgam of things. The B story is just bad, or rather uncomfortable, but intentionally so. Betty goes to Violet's parent-teacher conference when Jenny can't, and she decides to show Violet and David around to all the places she used to rule the school in her youth. Then she runs into Violet's teacher, Mr. Erickson, played by returning great Phil LaMarr. Look at him. Look at Phil LaMarr just being great. You know, man played a Japanese samurai for like 6 seasons and no one said anything because he's just that good. Betty had a crush on this teacher back when he was her teacher, some apparently like 35 years prior, and has a very different idea of what happened when she goes all Betty Davis-eyed psycho and tries to recapture the heart of a man that actually had to get a restraining order on her. Not gonna lie, it works because it's Betty. Betty is weird and it's great. Thought she met Jenny's dad in high school, but that's such a non-issue that you can hand-wave it away. And that's the frustrating thing about this series, because even if I can sit here and say the B story was uncomfortable to watch, it still had solid jokes, outstanding vocal performances, and the A story was even really solid on its own. There were episodes of the Goode Family I had to pause for the sake of my own sanity. This could be considered a low point of the show overall, and even then it's still perfectly fine. Like, I get ratings were down and I get there was a global event, but it was not because the series was bad that it got canceled. I'm actually disappointed we don't have that much more left to cover. It's just, man, sometimes it's not fair. The Critic is the same way, and I will fight people on that. And if I didn't mention this, everyone would call me a hack fraud. So there's a Japanese documentary team filming the whole bathroom scene, don't worry about it. Anyway, the lead dude, Hiroki Kakatani, is played by Daisuke Suzuki. I know that probably doesn't mean anything, but that's Toshi from American Dad. It all comes back around. Anyway, Invasion of the Potty Snatcher is a well-mannered, cringe-inducing 6 out of 10. Fun fact, this one actually has a table reading you can see on Hulu, which, like, it's cool if you're into that, and hey, it's better than Josh Gad crying at you. Remember that? Now, I could say a lot of things here, I could, but if there was one episode of this show that you show someone to give them an idea of what they're in for, it's this episode right here. I adore the absolute insanity of this episode. I mean, just, it's frustrating. Like, I was big mad when Inside Job got canceled. You bring back my grassy knoll, you monsters. But when you have something like this on broadcast TV and cancel it, I'm fuming. Betty is preparing her funeral face because she knows, thanks to a very trusty psychic, that today is her death day. She waits and waits, and sure enough, it wasn't. So she and Jenny and Violet, to a much more excited extent, go down to the psychic, Mr. Vonnie Ray Power, brought enchantingly to life by friend of Rich Evans himself, Patton Oswalt. What can the man not do? He might be history's most successful nerd. Man got to meet and act alongside his heroes, wrote comics, does outstanding voice work, got to meet Rich Evans. I mean, he has really done it all, and he is one of the most outstanding guest performances of the show. Vonnie Ray is just amazing. Anyway, turns out Jenny is actually the one that's cursed, and she's determined to show her mom it's all fake. That is, until she starts having a ton of bad luck. Which is just Betty by accident. TLDR, curses are what we make of it, yada yada yada. Shut up! That's not the good part. None of this matters. None of this! Even with good Patton, it doesn't matter. All that, super solid. But the B story? Oh, that's where the honey money is. Wayne is going camping with Peter and Doug. Already sounds awful, right? Well, wait. They go to get some fishing gear, and Paul Appel is back to tell them about the snakehead monsterfish that need to be caught as they're invasive species that secrete a toxin much akin to LSD. These monsterfish are a very real invasive species and are dangerous to any ecosystem they're in, it's true. So Wayne and the gang go fishing, and sure enough, they catch one of these snake-headed terrors, and when it tries to escape, Wayne catches it and proceeds to go on a mind-bending trip where the fish tells him all about their cosmic journey in a style very reminiscent of Christy Caracas in Super Jail. Like, I feel like he came in on at least some consulting here. This is just way too specific. Yeah. There's an acid trip into a Super Jail segment in a Fox show. It's not right. Crappy Death Day? That's like a 9 or a 10 out of 10 here, dog. It's good fiction, and it's just a shame this show got canceled. Louise's husband, Daniel, is dead, and she's not handling it very well. Jenny offers for Wayne to help out with things, and Louise ends up paying Jenny for sending him over. Look, here's the thing, the dealio. The A story is fine. The B story I prefer. Betty joins Violet's podcast and starts spilling the tea on who's a murderer in Greenpoint. What crimes lie hidden under the assorted tipped-over cars and, I don't know, half-functioning red box in front of the Megalomart. Yeah, to no one's surprise, Betty made all of it up, and the very real people whose lives were upended because of these sudden revelations are not happy. Now, to be fair, Violet does not deserve as much of the hate as Betty does, but she should have done some due diligence and looked into it. But it's a podcast. You don't listen to things longer than an hour because you want them to be factually accurate. Don't look at the timestamp, you're fine. You're enjoying the video, consume media. Jenny feels like a pimp and then through guilt flips and big pimpin' is fine. Like again, at these even just okay parts, it's still a totally decent, like, 7 out of 10. These are not bad episodes, just ones I'm less enthused about. But see what I mean when I said Daniel just gets written out? He didn't have any dialogue up to this point, and then just gets completely taken out entirely. There's no reason to really be invested in the Christmas episode of last season, if only just for Louise. Which that makes me really wonder what they wanted to do with Louise and a grand scheme idea. Like, have Daniel die, sure, but then where do you go from there? We actually see some very creative ideas with Louise till the end of the season. It just, without another season to see what happens, it's just, I don't know, I wish I saw more. Like, even if the next episode might be the low point of the whole show, even it has some merits. Big Pimpin' is a 7 out of 10, already said it, but skadoosh, I guess. Next slide! I didn't mention this, but I suppose I should now. See, the mayor actually had a voice change from Season 1 to Season 2. Season 1, he was Jeremy Rowley, but Season 2, they had to recast him and got a little-known actor by the name of John Hamm. A man who has done a ton of voice work before, but I straight up thought the mayor was Nick Kroll. If you told me that was John Hamm, I think I'd smack you. It's so nasally, it's unrecognizable. I think the most jarring thing was I was watching Grimsburg recently, and you can definitely hear him there. Man's a chameleon. Anyway, it's a mayor episode. The election is coming up, and the mayor asks Jenny to help him run his campaign after he implies that his mother died. So she agrees to help him out, and when Betty decides to get revenge, she runs a dog in opposition and works him like a puppet campaign. That's the whole episode, this back and forth between the two. Wayne is out trying to get dirt on the dog, Mayor Webb is just insufferable, and it just keeps going. It starts to lose steam in the third act, but I love the exaggerated display of power. Like, Betty goes crazy with new laws that are just not feasible, but it's fun, so you ignore it and just enjoy the ride. Not everything needs an explanation. If this is the first time you have ever heard of Bless the Harts, I sincerely hope that every time you hear the mayor in the series, when you go through and watch, you just see John Hamm being as nasally as humanly possible. It's upsetting. Like, he's good at it, but I was ready to punch my screen just from the sheer revulsion at the voice. The Dogturian candidate is a low point, but still completely solid 7 out of 10. Okay, the A story is Jenny and Wayne desperate for Betty to do something, and when she's running low on money, they encourage her to get a job, and so she does at the Last Supper, and what could go wrong? We find out about Wayne's secret Super Olympian review writer, and they weaponize him to get Betty fired with a well-crafted Yelp review that upsets poor little doo-doo-doo Louise. The A story, pshaw, it's whatever, it's fine. It's perfectly, tolerably okay. Now this B story here, though. Violet and David are looking for a third friend to hate everything with, so they put out some ads, and wouldn't you know it, Parker is there ready to be their best new bud. Parker is played by Wonder himself, the timeless beacon of light, Jack McBrayer, who I know we all know how good he is, but it's like John C. Reilly. There's so much more under the surface. He is such a talent that people really need to dig into because he has some bangers out there. So yeah, Violet and David are taking Parker around and he is just super positive constantly and keeps running into different friends of his. Violet and David keep trying to mock all the things he enjoys, and by the end, he's the one surrounded by friends and they're the two losers that couldn't find anything to enjoy. Like, it's such a satisfying, humbling experience. And that's coming from someone that genuinely enjoys Violet as a character. Make no mistake, this is an outstanding Violet and David episode. It perfectly plays on them being so counterculture, they just implode on themselves and look like fools. In this episode, the main conflict points are Jenny v. Betty and Violet getting a reality check. These characters are not written to be perfect people. It's their flaws that usually get them thrown into the conflict of the episode, and that's great! A good character doesn't have to be a perfect person. These characters are relatable, as is their relationships. Violet isn't the golden art child that's always right, but she does also have some moral voice of reason. Even here, she sees how she messed up. I know people complain about messages and being too on the nose, but this is a show with actual Jesus and messages and whatnot, and the family are the ones that come to these revelations and figure it out themselves. Trollin' with the homies is a delightful 8 out of 10. Just gonna get the B story out of the way real quick. Betty tries to scare Bud away at a potluck by telling him his strip club is on fire and he has a heart attack. She goes to visit him in the hospital and they start up a romance until he remembers that, you know, she was the one that caused the heart attack, and yeah. The A story? Jenny and Brenda go out for a party weekend and Jenny leaves Wayne in charge of Violet. And so while Wayne has to grapple with putting his foot down as a parent, even though he's not a real dad, he lets her have coffee and they get shirts and everything, but when he can't stop her, Violet ends up getting her nose pierced. When Jenny comes home and discovers this, she tells Wayne he could never be a dad and asks how he could ever think that was a good idea. And he then proceeds to feel genuine guilt for it. Sure enough, Violet's nose starts to get infected and he demands that she go with him to the hospital and puts his foot down, even calling Jenny to get them to let her in, and through his act of concern shows he's trying to be the best dad he can be. That sort of debate over what he can and can't do as a parent is, I think, a great focus. Like, he's been a part of Violet's life now, from what we know, arguably earlier than most, but he still grapples with that identity crisis. I'm sure this isn't the first take charge moment he's had. He even had one back in the pilot, and he's always been shown to be ready to do whatever needed to be done. He genuinely loves Violet and wants to do right by her. I don't know, I don't think we appreciate how well written and brought to life Wayne is. Sure, he's a down-home guy, but he loves his family and always wants to do right by them. He's not horribly dumb and he's not a genius. He's just Wayne, and that's good enough. Nosebud is a well-deserved 8 out of 10. Violet and David fall in love with an old music video that Jenny used to do all the choreography to, so she agrees to teach him as they try and learn it just for the novelty. But Jenny's ecstatic she gets to share this journey with her daughter and openly admits to wanting to live vicariously through her, which is incredible. Also, the music video that they're dancing to, I mean, it's an original production made for the show. I know that sounds like a yeah, no, duh thing to say, but this isn't some 30-second clip they show. No, they do a whole choreographed song and dance in parallel with the music video. Again, it's just cool stuff like that that makes you appreciate the creativity at work. Violet has to dash her mom's dreams by saying she's not going to be a dancer, and Jenny has to just make peace with that until Violet dances in public to cheer her up. Like, the A story only works because Kristen Wiig does such a good job with bringing Jenny to life. There is so much depth to her vocal delivery, which makes sense. She's done a lot of voice acting, and she really knows how to add this almost nervous energy to Jenny that shines. Again, the family can absolutely be the bad guys. Even the B story is focused around Wayne driving Betty out to a flea market and doing all kinds of nice things for her, so she'll finally tell him thank you. He just wants her to tell him thank you after all these years that they've known each other, which should not be that big of an ask, and yet because it's Betty, you believe it one way or another. Turns out she doesn't like owing anyone or something. I don't know. It's a pretty shallow B story, all things considered, but I'm glad they got their moment in the storage unit. It's not a total wash. Dance Dance Resolution is a good groovin' 7 out of 10. I think this might be one of the few times we ever see the family just, at church. Anyway, a new megachurch opens up and their pastor, Pastor Joanne, played by the one-of-a-kind Sarah Baker, doesn't know what she could possibly do to compete with the new superchurch. The new megachurch is run by Minister Mikey, played by Chris Diamantopoulos, who is just this charismatic, hateable, sorta, kinda, obviously, has something going on kinda megachurch priest. You know the character you've seen in The Righteous Gemstones. Betty and Jenny try and infiltrate the megachurch and get addicted instead until they have a crisis of faith and find dirt on Minister Mikey. The B story is also phenomenal. Violet and David find this just absolutely horrifying Jesus statue that stares deep into your soul. Wayne tells them he's never been able to sell the thing, so they convince him to sell it to them and then drive them around to help bring his good word. They prank Greenpoint by placing the Jesus around, and then when they go mad with power, Wayne pranks Violet and David to reel them back in, which again is great. It's phenomenal. Good for Wayne. And the statue even ties into the A story, helping them take out Mega Pastor Mikey once and for all. It's a fun episode. It's got great just everything. I genuinely don't have any gripes. I wish we saw more of Pastor Joanne, but it's also shocking that a series that has Jesus as a main character doesn't involve them constantly at church. It's nice, it's surprising, and it fits that southern religiousness enough that I can be about it. It's also nice that Violet isn't just anti-Christian openly, and she still understands it's part of the family's dynamic. There's a lot of subtle additions and details that make this episode that much better to love. I genuinely don't have any gripes with it whatsoever, and yeah, Easter's 11 is a risen 10 out of 10. Okay, I thought I was stronger than this. This episode hurts a little bit. I've been digging around, doing some researching and whatnot. This would actually be the last episode that... I can do this. This would be the last episode that Randy is in. Our sweet boy, our magician of party rock. Godspeed, you magical creature. Wayne gets a free hot tub, and at first everyone loves it, until Wayne becomes the newest victim of hot tub time and loses himself to the relaxing lull of the Jets, yacht rock, and margarita mixers. Wayne gets rid of the hot tub to save his relationship with Jenny. Aww. I mean, yeah, that plays out exactly how you think it does. But it's nice to have Wayne be the pseudo-antagonist here. He needs to learn lessons too, and that's okay. The B story is weird. Endearing, but weird. Betty gets kicked out of and banned from her favorite discount clothing store for being just a horribly disgusting Karen of a grandmother. You're watching her tear into Julian, and yeah, no, he made the right call. She absolutely deserved to be banned. Julian is played by Drew Droeg, who, I'll say this, of all the guest voice cast, he is one of the most memorable ones. I don't know, he brings the character to life in a genuinely captivating way. This is a very weird B story. If it was Family Guy or Simpsons, it'd be just a total joke. But Betty decides to get back into the store and has Violet and David put on a whole new fake identity for her to slip in. However, while in disguise and playing a completely different character, she actually becomes friends with Julian and starts to have wonderful evenings with him and his husband, and even gets invited to a fashion showcase to see all the newest stuff before it comes out. She actually feels guilty about being his friend under false pretenses and comes clean, and then the saint of a man, forgives her and is just happy he has her as a friend now. What? How did this get canceled? It's such a whirlwind. You give me this B story, you tell me Randy's never gonna be around anymore, going, my babies? Sure, fine, he was annoying, but I loved him. Hot Tubtation is a too sweet 9 out of 10. I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've seen Dr. Chakrabarti, but she shows up this episode played by Madhur Jaffrey. Turns out there's a plot of land that they both think is the other's, and so when they finally figure it out, Wayne has some extra land he has no idea what to do with. However, his family decides to invite themselves over, and while Jenny is excited, Wayne is embarrassed and tries to keep everything under control. Meemaw would actually have her hair color change and a voice change for season 2, now being played by acting legend Swoosie Kurtz, Stan's mom in American Dad. Betty bonds with Meemaw while Jenny goes to the holler to try and get Meemaw's boyfriend back and refuses to believe that Wayne told her so about anything. And yet, Meemaw really just wants Wayne to come home now and again just to say hi. She misses him, but she understands that he's happy, and she's happy he found someone like Jenny. The B story is also honestly really solid. Violet offers to take Uncle Tommy for a walk, and when he runs away from her, she has to chug a ton of soda and act as feral as possible to try and hunt him down, and by the end, when she actually finds him when no one else would or even try to, he thanks her. It's a sweet moment where Tommy actually feels like he has a community for once. And Violet doesn't do it as some sort of way to get back at him or anything. She has a better understanding of who Tommy is. It's the small things. Like, there's a ton of heart to this episode that could have just been played as a straight joke, and they keep adding more and more layers to it. They know what they're doing, and it's just art. Hoot and Haw is a down-home 9 out of 10. We get the introduction of Wayne's longtime best friend, Travis, played by Kenan Thompson, the patron saint of sketch comedy. He's a super attractive, crystal healing, big dreams, no drive kinda guy. Together they want to open their bar, the Drinkin' Temple, and of course Travis starts making giant checks that Wayne quickly struggles to cash. He goes all in with Travis, who manages to get married, get the bar burnt down, and get divorced, all in about 48 hours. Man speed runs life through and through. Meanwhile, the B story has Jenny determined to fix their car, especially after Wayne says it's a fiery death trap that can't be fixed, and she was challenged, and you do not challenge Jenny Hart. The car has a ton of memories for all of them, and sure enough, it is just an absolute shambling mess. It is catching on fire 8 different ways to Sunday. Jenny is at her wit's end, with even the best YouTube mechanics not able to help her, and when they don't have any other choice, they go to the dealership, and Travis uses his specialty to get them a great deal on a new car. I think the episode needed that last bit with Travis. If you're gonna make a character like him stick around, you need to give him a chance to shine. He's Wayne's friend for a reason. He must have some redeeming qualities. And they very smartly make him both one of the central conflicts and also one of the central solutions to the episode. It's perfect. It's the perfect intro episode to a character I really am totally ambivalent towards. Kenan Thompson does a fine job with him. He really does probably the best anyone could with the character. He's just brought in, personally, I think, too late. I'm sure I would have loved him in Season 3 when he had more time to grow. The Drinkin' Temple is a well-wished 8 out of 10. Okay, the B story? Betty is out driving in the rain when she ends up on an embankment and she has to be rescued by the captain, played by icon of 1,000 shows, Tim Meadows, and his rookie tug, played by returning great Jack McBrayer. She then goes around town using her words to defuse situations, which honestly, I know it's far-fetched, but if it works, it works. The A story follows Jenny getting the family and David set up for a game night because she literally never loses. The family knows better than to let her lose, so they've been creatively letting her win time and time again. However, David finally calls her on it, and Jenny starts to spiral until she's raging in a youth center and threatening to beat up kids. Betty has to talk her down and explains that, yeah, she did just start letting Jenny constantly win because she'd already lost her dad, she'd lost enough, and she didn't want her to hurt anymore. Ha! And then we see that she tied with her dad at the top of the winning list. Ha! No! It's not a direction you expect it to take, but it makes sense and it handles that awkwardness after the loss of a parent beautifully. So many series can show the sudden loss and the pain, but very few exemplify the awkwardness of having to move forward together. I don't know, it's a very relatable feeling, and I appreciate that when they go for an emotional core to an episode, it's never like a gut punch right at the end to just get some tears. It's something that you get build up and delivery to, and it does make sense. Jenny's obsession stemmed from Betty's desire to make sure she didn't lose anymore. It shows how the actions of our parents can shape us in ways we don't even realize, or realize why they did what they did. I don't know. Again, it's deeper than what you see on the surface, and I really think this is one of the best episodes of the entire series. When you lose, you win is a Yahtzee of a 10 out of 10. The episode is already a banger. Ben Schwartz guest stars as an annoying rich kid. That's all I need. Wrap it up. Jenny and Brenda get into a fight and they don't think the other appreciates them. And then Brenda finally realizes that Jenny does more for her than she realizes, and she strips down and fights the possums like only she can. It's a very interesting look into Brenda's life and how such a mystical creature of a person lives. I don't know. It was a solid chance for Fortune Feimster to deliver with Brenda, and I think she came through. She has a really solid job, and I genuinely enjoy Brenda as just this massive human. The B story has Wayne, Betty, and Violet trying to escape the heat wave at the movies when they see Wayne's truck in the movie and everyone starts gawking at it when Ben Schwartz's rich kid has Daddy buy it and Wayne gets a brand new smart truck. However, he can't get over his one true love, his old truck, and so Violet goes to try and get it back and ends up actually befriending the rich kid through their shared love of movies, and they trick him into getting the old truck back and driving off. It's a totally okay episode, like a solid 8 out of 10, and that's not bad at all. It's not one that you'll be quoting or telling people about, but it definitely shows they still remember what they're doing with the show. The linear narrative still mattered no matter how loose. Hull Force 1 is a heatwave resilient 8 out of 10. This might actually be the only Jesus-centric episode. Like, Jesus is directly related to the main plot. We'll get into it. Jenny tries to ignore Jesus about doing the right thing and fessing up when she accidentally got Louise's windshield cracked by parking her car too close to a dump truck and a pebble fell off the truck bed and cracked it. But like, okay, the dude's company's insurance paid for it. She would have had coverage for it. It would not be that big of a deal at all, especially for the two to argue. I don't know, it's not something worth the guilt in my book. But when Jenny goes against Jesus' teachings, a pipe bursts and washes him off the wall, and I think we need to have this talk. Hear me out. Jesus is a gas leak. Jesus is a gas leak that is making Jenny hallucinate that she's being told divine wisdom. He usually only shows up in the restaurant. If it's not the restaurant, it's a car, and we can just say it's fumes. He only interacts with Jenny and doesn't seem to have any cosmic control. I will not be swayed on my incredibly dumb conspiracy theory. Jesus was a gas leak and other classic hits. Alright, the actual episode. Jenny starts to go mad with powers, Louise loses her identity and decides to become Tony with an I. A no-nonsense, do-do-do-do badass. She almost turns Brenda, she's just that good. I don't know, I love that for Louise, and it's actually a great growth for her character after the death of Daniel, now that she's standing more on her own 2 feet. The B story has Travis trying to heal Betty and Wayne with crystals. He can't, they go to the hospital. Resolution, it's okay. I think Jesus was kinda too worried about the micro and not the macro here, but what can you do? Hot take, Jesus is not the best part of the show. I get why he's there, but ultimately I could see the show without him being largely unchanged, and I don't know if that was intentional or not. Were they going to do something more with it later on? Was he in fact a gas leak? It just feels off. We never even learn when Jenny first started talking with Jesus. Really leaves a lot you want to know more about. Tony with an I is a life-changed 8 out of 10. A New York couple move into the tiny home across the way. Sam, played by Anna Gastier of Sweaty Balls fame, and Leslie, played by Fred Armisen, professional Portlandian. Yeah, it's just a bunch of SNL people. They move down to experience the South in all its country glory, and Jenny and Betty decide to milk it for all it's worth, while Violet is embarrassed beyond all belief. When they even bring down a New York food critic to try Betty's pies that were totally not from the gas station, they're put on the spot, and when they can't bake, the gig is up. Honestly, I know I sped through it, but it's actually pretty solid. It's just a lot of jokes, not a ton of actual story you have to work through, which is totally okay. The B story does plenty of that. When a sinkhole starts swallowing the bar Meemaw works at, Wayne and Travis enter a cornhole tournament to win the money needed to save it. They're trained by a mysterious coach played by Phil Lamar, who, I'm gonna say it, just steamrolls the B story. This man knew what he wanted to do with this character, and he had fun with it. He was a true cornhole master, and I genuinely love this performance. His joke delivery is terrific, and it just sings because he's there. Like, yeah, of course they win the tournament. That's what you do in this. The bar is saved. Joe Buck and Aaron Andrews even guest stars themselves as commentators. It's just, man, it's a great B story and a pretty dang great A story. You got everything you need for some good quality television. Tiny Pies is a penultimate and freshly baked 10 out of 10. And here we are, the series finale. A surreal and tragic reality. The episode is told through flashbacks as the family is interrogated by two investigators. One, played by Christopher Maloney, sex pest hunter, and the other, Michelle Buteau. They're trying to figure out what everyone wants to know. How old is Betty Hart? Through flashbacks, we find out that Wayne was able to get a free RV from this guy that Travis totally trusts because of his silver aura. However, Travis, being the dumb, beautiful idiot that he is, confused dark silver with light silver, and that super nice dude is actually trying to get rid of a drug lab that also has a giant snake in it. Wayne happily takes the RV and is determined to take the family to the beach. While the family is heading down, Jenny and Violet try everything to figure out how old Betty is. They start to get obsessed, and when the family is at their breaking point, staring out at that moonlit beach, she tells them she's 53. The same age her mom was when she died. That's it. Betty is just 53. And sure enough, the family lies about her age to the investigators, and the episode pans out to a showcase of all the different characters of the show up in the moonlit sky as the Hart family looks on. I know I gloss over the investigators, but I can't understate how great Christopher Maloney is. Please, watch Captain Fall on Netflix. The man is a master. Their intercuts are just so well done, and the episode as a whole is a perfect example of Bless the Harts. This felt like the ripcord finale. The if we have to end it, we end it here and we can walk away without any regrets. Do I wish there was a season 3? Absolutely. Could it be some sort of monkey paw situation where season 3 is just abysmal? I guess so, but a lot of fail-safes would have to fail for that to happen. This episode shows they had a plan. Invest in the family. You didn't like them because they were always going to do the right thing. You liked them because they were the Harts and they were going to be fun no matter what. Betty's birthday isn't a perfect episode of television, but it is a perfect episode of Bless the Harts and the best one to go out on. It's a tragic 10 out of 10 that makes you wonder of what could have been. And that's season 2. That was the end of Bless the Harts. And while Betty's birthday definitely felt like an ending they had in the pocket just in case things went belly up, it did what it needed to do. There was never a point where I was dreading going through Bless the Harts. There was no episode that was inherently unbearable. It is very surprising to me that a show like this just couldn't make it. Granted, it did come out in a very rough time globally, and it really just seems like a tragic consequence more than anything. Sure, some episodes were slower than others, but man, that last scene hurt a little bit. Bless the Harts was made with heart. I don't think anyone can deny that. The second season did drag on, but overall, I think there were more great episodes than average ones. It was still finding its stride and sadly just didn't find it fast enough. I encourage everyone to check this show out as it really does capture that resilient country spirit brilliantly. The voice actors put in their all, the writers understood the story, and the fact that the characters actually had depth and could be the active antagonists in their own stories makes the series shine brighter than most. I'll admit when the series first aired, I was entirely guilty of not watching it. I hated the look and thought it wasn't worth my time. Then we caught it on Hulu and had me cracking up right at the pilot. It was smarter than it had any right being, and I kicked myself for not supporting it when it was first coming out. Bless the Harts will probably be the closest we get to a series truly embodying the spirit of King of the Hill. A family that unequivocally loves each other and fights all the challenges life throws at them. They deal with their own vanity and lots in life, and at the end of the day, they can't compromise who they are. Jesus is still a gas leak, and I refuse to be convinced otherwise. But overall, this was a terrific journey, and I'm glad this show exists. And there we have it. That was our dive into two of the shows that tried to capture that King of the Hill magic again. Ultimately, Bless the Harts understood the assignment. It never tried to be a carbon copy of King of the Hill, but it did have the same character identity. The characters all being developed and having an actual depth to their thoughts and actions. Even Bud and Randy have understandable motivations, and they're Bud and Randy. The Goode Family was just trying to retool a concept and overcorrected way too hard. While it did sort of balance out by the middle, the damage was done. But again, it was on ABC and was fighting an uphill battle from the start. Bless the Harts, personally, is leagues better than the Goode Family, though I think the Goode Family could be adapted for the modern day and see some success. Obviously, Bless the Harts could just get renewed and keep going, doesn't need any fundamental retooling in my eyes. These shows show both how influential King of the Hill was on pop culture and the media landscape, and how difficult it is to recapture the magic that makes King of the Hill shine. That down-home, salt-of-the-earth identity. But I mean, think about it. Look at how obnoxious some Simpsons or Family Guy knockoffs are. To have King of the Hill cloning attempts that actually have a charm of their own is something special. Yeah, I didn't like the Goode Family nearly as much as Bless the Harts, but I could still respect it by the second half. I could still at least see what they were trying to do. What were they trying to do with Forget About It? Exactly. Even you don't know. Honestly, I'd say even a series like Chicago Party Ant kind of has some King of the Hill in its creative DNA, and the more you look at some series coming out, the more you can't deny its influence through the years. Like, the Goode Family came out the same year King of the Hill ended, and Bless the Harts came out almost an entire decade later, and you could still feel its waves even then. I don't know what I'm expecting from the new King of the Hill revival, but time will only tell what will happen there. What are your predictions? Which series did you like better? Let me know in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching. Woo! I know, no, I'm not. Still recovering from pneumonia. I've had to redo this script several times, which is a very good problem to have, because when I was writing this, it was for the 5K celebration, like 5,000, that's amazing! But we're actually, we just hit 14,000 at the time of recording this. I had 10K as my end of year goal, and I hit it before March. It was humbling how fast we shot up, and I'm so grateful to each and every one of you. That being said, I kept trying to get this video out, and I'm gonna keep it 100 with you, gang. Yakuza 8, Like a Dragon 2, Infinite Wealth is just, it's really, really, really good. I was feeling a little burnt out. I decided to dive into it, and I lost over 100 hours easy. Regardless, we're still climbing, and I've got all kinds of cool projects to go out alongside our Archer series review, which, because of the sickness, I have a bit of a backlog on scripts for, so these should be coming out relatively quickly, probably within the next few days. Truly, I can't say this enough. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving a channel like mine any amount of your attention. I love making this content for you, and I promise to keep improving these videos as we sharpen our craft and learn together. Please know that if you're hearing this, you matter. No matter what's going on in your life, no matter where you are, know that I'm proud of you and I believe in you. You're doing a great job just going through the day. I've been asked why I always put these messages in my video, and honestly, it's because I've been there. I've been doom scrolling long-form essay videos while going through those darker times in my life. I know it's not easy, and I know it's not something you feel like you can talk about with people without it sounding like you're just whining. But it's not whining. Your feelings and your mental health matter. You matter. So get out there and do something. Anything that brings you joy, and when you're done, hey, these videos will always be here for you. Thank you all so much for watching this and all my other videos. It has been just an absolute dream come true to have people actually looking at my content. Please feel free to join our Discord. We have a Patreon, Twitter, where you can see some of my actual anime takes when I'm bored out of my mind or doom scrolling myself. We all do it. I'm not going to pretend, and I swear I'm going to do more streaming. I've just been in a content rabbit hole. I do have some anime content queued up. I do have another series I'm going to try and do alongside Archer, which if you follow my posts, you can probably figure out. But I'm going to do a special program with that one. We have got a lot in the pipeline for you guys, so make sure to subscribe, tell your friends, whatever. This is incredible. I never thought I'd hit 10K. I never, like, that was the, if I hit 10K, I can at least say, like, I made a big enough impact. I hit 5 digits. That's something for me and no one else. And you guys made that happen. And I'm so glad I got to do it, making content about series I love. And I have so many series I still love that I haven't gotten to talk about yet. And it's been really just a ton of fun. I'm sorry. I know I'm rambling, but it's the 10K celebration. I feel like I can ramble for a little bit at the end of what's probably a 3-hour video. So just you wait. These videos will be peppered with Raid Shadow Legends ads in no time. I can feel it. Anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling. If you ever have any questions you want me to answer on stream or on a video or something, feel free to put them in. I tried to get some Q&As. Nobody asked any questions, so that's fine. But anyway, I'll see you all next time. Goodbye, everyone. You're incredible. Always forward, never back.